Yes.
Jeffrey Epstein is a victim of cyberbullying, and that's what's leading him to self-harm.
That's right.
You joke, but we need to keep him alive.
Yeah, no, he has to live.
We like really do.
We got to get this out there.
We really need to keep him alive.
Yeah, it's clear that, like, as I predicted, there's no dead man switch. They've done the necessary cauterizing the connections, so he's the only loose end, and so they're just trying to get rid of him.
It's hilarious that in the span of like 24 hours, it's basically been like, we're hunting Epstein. He's the devil incarnate. And now we're like, protect him at all costs.
Yes.
He's innocent. Save Jeffrey.
So from what I gather, Epstein was in like whatever cell block 9 of the Manhattan Corrections Facility.
It's the jail that's right by 100 Center Street. It's just this giant like windowless building that they like. It's not like Rikers, but they like house people there. It's sort of like the Tombs, who are awaiting trial, but like not on a long-term basis.
And the wing he's in is for people who are sort of like high, we would call them in the business high value targets. And somehow they found him on the floor with marks on his neck, blue marks on his neck, and kind of like writhing on the floor, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, fetal
That's where we're at.
position.
And now he's in the hospital.
Well, this checks out because if you follow Jeffrey Epstein's private account, Small Jeff, you know that he was like posting some very dark things that day. He was feeling very low.
All right, I need to. We're going to get into all of the genuinely insane breaking news about this, but I just by way of introducing this show and our guests, it's Chapo, it's me, Matt, and Felix sitting in on deck, and I would just like to say, if you are a listener of this show, you may have noticed over the past month, a couple of months or weeks that us, are your hosts of our show here, are beginning to develop a condition known as Epstein Brain.
Oh yeah, I got it bad.
Matt has full blown Epstein Brain, and I'm like rapidly sliding it into the abyss here. And what is Epstein Brain? Well, Epstein Brain is sort of
I call it Epstein Bar virus, actually.
You know, it's so fucked up. I was like, I was up to like 5 on like Les Wexner's Wikipedia, and I was like, it's honestly mentally healthier for me to watch Twitch streams than this. But I was like, wait a minute, William Barr's dad hired Epstein at the Epstein Bar. They're fucking telling us it's right in front of us,
dude. It's right in front of us.
There are so many things that are in front of our eyes that only now we're beginning to notice. But I would just like to say, Epstein Brain is a condition similar to, for instance, what like maybe your boomer liberal palates have developed with regards to the Mueller Russiagate investigation. However, with the minor difference that the Epstein Brain and conspiracy is 100% true and not made up bullshit like that other stuff.
Yeah,
and is extremely whips ass.
Yeah, no, it's amazing.
Absolutely 100% all true.
100%.
Like the Robert Mueller shit is not only mostly bullshit, it's also incredibly boring.
So boring.
I don't even know who he is.
About Russiagate.
This fucking senile old
only stuff
fart.
about Russiagate that's true is the stuff that involves Epstein.
Yeah. This senile old fuck going like, well, if you'll see here in February of 2016, this Facebook post from Blacks for Trump. Boring. Get the fuck out of here with this.
Are you telling me you're not gripped by the revelation in page 7030 of the Mueller report that proves that Gilroy absolutely knew that Montague lied about the meeting in Terre Haute?
Oh, God. All these fucking
We're actually
meetings.
going to do a live performance reading of the Epstein indictment.
24 hours.
Any conspiracy that involves Don Trump Jr. being in a room during a crucial moment is not real. That man has never been allowed anywhere near any important decisions or secret meetings.
So as we slide further into Epstein related dementia, I thought it would be a good time now to bring on two guests that have started their own podcast dedicated it's like basically if True Detective season 1 ran for like 30 episodes instead of just stopping before they got to the truth.
Yeah.
It would be the it would be the TrueAnon podcast hosted by our good friends Brace and Liz. Brace, welcome back to the show. Liz, welcome.
Thank you.
My wig has been fucking snatched by Jeffrey Epstein. It is so a crooked cop tried to murder him last night in his cell. What's it? I can't pronounce
Tagliatelle or something like this. He's a
Tartaglione.
Tartaglione, he's like the guy from Doom. He's
the
Beast Ravon.
He's the Doom Marine, but Italian. So let's just get into this. This is NBC News. It says, is just a news account of what went down the other night. Accused pedophile and wealthy Manhattan financier Jeffrey Epstein was found injured and in a fetal position inside his cell at a New York City jail, according to sources close to the investigation. Epstein, who is being held in Metropolitan Correctional Center as he awaits his trial for conspiracy and sex trafficking, was found semi-conscious with marks on his neck, two sources told News 4. Investigators are trying to piece together exactly what happened, saying details remain murky. Two sources tell News 4 that Epstein may have tried to hang himself, while a third source cautioned that the injuries were not serious and questioned if Epstein might be using it as a way to get a transfer. A fourth source said that an assault had not been ruled out and that another inmate was questioned. The inmate who investigators have talked to in Lower Manhattan facility has been identified as Nicholas Tartaglione, according to two sources. Tartaglione is a former police officer in Westchester County who was arrested in December 2016 and accused of killing 4 men in an alleged cocaine distribution conspiracy, then burying their bodies in his yard in Otisville, Orange County, according to court records.
I just want to add a Mueller report style footnote here. The place he killed these 4 men at was called the Liquid Lounge. That is LICKQIED. QID.
God,
it's probably the Likud Lounge, actually.
Well, I mean, he was actually doing some very smart admiralty law. If you kill somebody in a place that's spelled incorrectly, the murder is invalid. The murder conviction's invalid. So free this man, you know?
So I feel like before we can even get into... Okay, so there's a strong chance that they... who they are, I don't know. The fact that they bungled this hit makes me think it was the Clintons involved in this.
Yeah, Robbie
Mook tried to set up this hit.
Yeah. I just imagine Hillary sneaking up behind him and she's garroting him, but then she has a Kurdu attack halfway through and starts coughing and falls down.
Those damn vapors again.
It's like the college episode of The Sopranos. The thing about us wise guys is the hustle never ends. You drop the files on my husband back there. Your life is just chilling in hell.
Let's just say his Adam's apple was Wisconsin.
But it's just like, but Brace, like it's the nature of this case that like you cannot discover one seemingly incredibly bizarre new detail about this without finding out 10 other even more bizarre things. And I feel like before we can even get into Epstein, we have to talk about Tartaglione. A crooked Orange County police officer who fucking murdered 4 cartel guys and is represented by a top mob lawyer. And check this out.
Italian last name, dude.
He looks like the Black Lodge version of Mr. Clean.
We just made fun of that QAnon asshole for killing the Gambino guy because we said, what's the mob got to do with all this shit? And now here we got a fucking mob-connected dude trying to clip Epstein 2 days later.
I like how
he got the wrong guy.
I like how fucking after like 2016, there were like some like more left liberals who were like, yeah, apologies to Bernie voters. You're right. I'm joining DSA. Now we have to do the same thing with QAnon.
Yes. Well,
it'll be the new rose emoji.
I want to sort of earmark that because QAnon. We can get into this after Tartaglione. QAnon is itself a psyop from, let's just call them the cabal, to discredit what is actually happening, which is literally the same thing as QAnon, except Donald Trump's not fighting them.
I mean, like one of the chief guys who started the whole Pizzagate thing is Jack Prilosek. He was literally a naval intelligence officer.
Not only
my brain is melting. Oh my God.
Not only that, he is like the protege of one Roger Stone.
Yeah.
Along with Mr. Pizzagate, Mike Cernovich. These people pushed, Posobiec really pushed Pizzagate and QAnon. Cernovich mostly stuck to Pizzagate, but they pushed them hard. And they added all this sort of noise. I mean, also Posobiec was behind the Seth Rich stuff, which added just like noise to all of this. and made sort of the idea of the Clintons murdering the Clinton crime family kind of discredited.
Oh, Brace, remind me what famous law professor was featured in one of Mike Cernovich's documentaries about censorship on campus?
Are you talking about the movie Silence featuring Alan Dershowitz?
Yes, I am.
Oh, Martin Scorsese directed Silence, I thought.
Yo, he's
so
trash.
Cernovich also did this weird thing where he was trying to unseal the records of one of the main victims that was suing Ghislaine Maxwell.
Yes.
Dershowitz tried to unseal them. He got kind of rebuffed, I believe. Then Cernovich just did the exact same lawsuit. And these were the victims' lawyers were literally like, Mike Cernovich is a piece of shit. Like, do not unseal these records for him. He's working for Dershowitz to try to discredit the victim. And then Cernovich, when the records do get unsealed, like all of them something happens with the Miami paper, and Cernovich is taking credit for it, but it's fucking white noise, man. My man is behind. He's working with Dershowitz. Dershowitz, probably allegedly by me, hired Roger Stone to clear his ass, and they're working on this big multi-level campaign.
I think that Roger Stone has been involved from the beginning, super deep involved. My brain is much farther gone in Epstein brain than Brace's somehow, which is saying a lot. So I'm on the tip that I'm like, maybe part of Pizzagate is maybe they're onto something here.
Well, before we get into all these sort of double blinds and controlled oppositions and false flag conspiracies, there's just two other incredible details about Nicholas Tartaglione, the person of interest who may have tried to suicide Jeffrey Epstein in the middle of hot, solitary hive
secure housing unit.
So it says here when you Google his name, you get a story about this. Illicit phone found in cell of ex-cop charged in quadruple homicide. Nicholas Tartaglione, 51, a former Briarcliff Manor police officer who lived on Old Mountain. He lived on the Old Town Road near Otisville.
Oh, dude, he's hopping on that remix. Lil Nas X. Yo, we got Jeffrey Epstein on the new remix. Old Town Road.
He faces 17 counts, including 4 counts of murder in furtherance of a narcotics conspiracy. Federal prosecutors are seeking the death penalty.
Okay? Yes.
This guy's facing the death penalty. So check this out. According to a letter prosecutors filed on Monday, corrections staff at the New York Metropolitan Correctional Center in Manhattan saw Tartaglione holding a mini cellular phone in his hand on July 3rd while in his cell. Okay, why is the date July 3rd important? July 3rd happens to be the same day as when a panel of judges with the Second Circuit Court of Appeals ruled that some 2,000 pages of the Epstein case files had to be unsealed. And now a guy who does hits for the mob, who's a former cop facing the death penalty in the same holding center as Jeffrey Epstein, ends up with a contraband cell phone on the same day, or was caught with it at least the same day that happened. Second,
yes.
I mean, maybe not as dramatic to the conspiracy angle to this, but Tartaglione was also involved in the assault of a man named Clay Tiffany, who is known as a longtime Ossining gadfly, who hosted a public access show where he railed against the Briarcliff police force called, I shit you not, Dirge for the Charlatans, who won a $1.1 million settlement from Briarcliff Village after claiming that former officer Nicholas Tartaglione assaulted him.
See, how are you not supposed to go insane? Because if I lived in that town,
what does God want me to do with this information?
If I lived in that town and there's a cranky weirdo who looks like Steve Brule on my TV on public access on his show, the Dirge of the Charlatans.
Dirge of the
Charlatans, talking about the corrupt cops who keep harassing him and beating him up, just for wearing his sandwich boards out in the public. I would just write him off as a crank. And then once he died, I would say, well, he's an old man. He probably died of natural causes. Then, oh no, the cop that he named personally as someone who was
and won $1 million
from killed 4 people and buried them in his yard, and then ended up in the cell with Epstein, maybe fucking trying to kill him.
So check this out.
They successfully located America's dumbest crooked cop. He didn't even leave his house to bury the bodies. He's so fucking lazy. Like there was a special forces unit of the Chicago Police Department that was like, they were doing the SHIELD shit. Yeah. Like they would raid drug dealers and then like secretly sell them, and it took them years to catch them. And in upstate New York, I guess just no one gives a shit. Just no work ethic.
He got caught by his neighbor who just saw him burying the body.
There was a foot sticking out of the ground. This lazy fucking moron.
He was like,
he left a hand sticking out as like a Halloween decoration.
He was like,
"Whoa, I'm doing a fucking spooky solstice event.
It's for the kids."
He's like,
it's
fucking
solstice.
He's like,
my
fucking
girlfriend loves solstice shit. It's fucking.
He's like fucking Peter Stormare in Fargo. But check this out. It's just a little bit more about Clay Tiffany. It said here, Tiffany used his public access show to rail against the village of Briarcliff Manor and was a regular fixture at village board and board of education meetings. He may have been dead for up to 2 weeks when police found him at his Ossining home on March 26 after someone asked for a welfare check. He died of natural causes.
Yeah, I'm sure he did.
I mean, Italian excellence is like just killing rude Yelp reviewers. That's the equivalent here. It's the exact same thing.
It's just, I mean, you can say that's silly, but at this point, I don't know what to do with the fact that I was there in front of the Manhattan U.S. courthouse on last week when during the arraignment or during the bail hearing, they say no bail for Epstein. And my just thought is, well, what now? There's two ways this plays out. If there's nothing behind this, then, you have a regular old legal procedure and, everything gets out and we see, and maybe some rich people get in trouble. Maybe some documents come out. Maybe some incriminating video is released, but it would all take a natural course. If this isn't the case, then there's no way this can go to trial by the nature of who is implicated by it, which means something has to happen to Epstein. Like it's just a mathematical fact. Something has to happen to him. And then less than a fucking week later, the motherfucker is on the ground in a fucking suicide attempt. What are you supposed to do with this?
So the thing is, even if it does go to trial, the fucking lawyer is Boys.
That's true, which is that's been what's fucking with me is that if there's anybody who's like wired into this shit, it would be him.
Here's the thing: I am friends with literally no one in Mossad, right?
Likely story, dude.
I mean, I had an internship like anyone else, but I've sort of fallen out of contact with those friends.
How is it that all of these people have like the closest contact you can get with Mossad, which means the CIA? Like, Boys hired the fucking Mossad or like a cutout company or whatever to fuck with like the people writing stories about
Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah.
Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah, well, it was through Black Cube. Am I getting this right that Ehud Barak is involved with Black Cube?
Epstein and Barak are both like in a partnership in a intelligence business.
Yeah, no, it's
not Black Cube. It's a different one.
When all this was breaking, freaking Netanyahu's grandson was like on Twitter being like, "You got to look into Ehud Barak." It's like, what the hell is going on?
Okay, hear me out. What if Boys? He's like, let's go leave True Detective season 1, True Detective season 2. Boys is Colin Farrell. Like, this is his redemption, and he's got like
he's divorced.
He's got like a big son who he's trying to like leave a good example for. Everyone thinks he's crooked, and he's like, this is the last thing. He's going into the forest.
All right. Well,
the big son, I assume, is Weinstein.
yes, it's Harvey Weinstein. He keeps getting beaten up at school.
Watching Friends together.
Because Boys used to get a lot of good. Like, the 90s, people loved reading news stories about lawyers for some reason.
What a terrible time.
I know, God. But now, like, we just have to read about lawyers again, except now they're bad. I just don't give a fuck. But, Boys is, like, kind of in the gutter now. And I think he is trying to redeem his reputation. But I also, like, am 30% I'll go up to 50%. Pretty sure that he's just controlled opposition in this. He is the sort of fail-safe if all the Epstein the Clinton crime family bungles something once again. Boys is there to fuck up the case totally. Get Epstein, whatever, life in prison, but make sure none of the shit really gets out.
Well,
yeah, that's kind of what I think too. Because like, what's weird is that some of the other kind of like tangential figures in this like very vast worldwide conspiracy, Adnan Khashoggi and Robert Maxwell, both die, who were both like obviously CIA assets, both died like basically penniless
and
like,
disgraced,
total ruin, disgraced, both very strange deaths. And I kind of feel like that's what's happening with our friend Jeffrey. Like he's just he's the fall guy to kind of like move it along, but keep everything in place. Like
the Alfred to his Batman. Ghislaine Maxwell. I cannot pronounce it. Ghislaine.
It's Ghislaine, but it sounds better to say Ghislaine.
That is great OPSEC by Robert Maxwell, giving his daughter that fucking made up ass name that I can't say.
Totally unpronounceable name. Yeah.
Who, by the way, like, she was at Chelsea Clinton's wedding as well.
Oh, absolutely, dude.
She's like at every event ever.
Check this fucking factoid out. Robert Maxwell was thrown off a boat called the Lady Ghislaine. The boat that fucking Epstein uses, the yacht that he uses, is also called Lady Ghislaine.
And
well, maybe he's thrifty.
And wasn't that Lady Ghislaine the one that Maxwell quote unquote fell off of? Didn't Trump buy that one?
Yes, from fucking Adnan Khashoggi.
Do these people know? Maybe the problem is just like these people don't have enough friends. It's just like the same four people.
Honestly, like this is how abusive relationships. When like your circle just gets super, super like insular and everybody kind of starts fighting with each other and they don't know who to turn outside for help.
Yeah.
Maybe if they had all just started a podcast, the sex ring wouldn't have happened.
Exactly.
Or like Donald Trump should have cut these toxic people out of his life.
I mean, he did. And like, he honestly, like he did cut these people out. And, like, look what happened to him, dude. Like he achieved like, honestly, like amazing things.
Yeah. Great shit, man. That was dope.
I want to get back to Ghislaine Maxwell and her father, Robert Maxwell, and his mysterious death as well. But before there, we're go back to boys for a second. Another interesting, plot line in this conspiracy is the rivalry between David Boies and Alan Dershowitz, which contributed to one of my absolute favorite TV clips of recent vintage, which was Dershowitz going on Fox News to claim that I have, quote, a perfect normal sex life.
I have never gone past the tip in 30 years.
So he said he said on Fox News, look, I've had sex with one woman since the day I met Jeffrey Epstein. I challenged David Boies to say under oath that he has only had sex with one woman during that period of time. He goes, he couldn't do it. So he has an enormous amount of chutzpah to challenge me and to challenge my perfect sex life during the relevant period of time.
Here's the thing. He does the whole Clinton thing where he says he's only had sex with one woman during that time.
Oh, shit.
Oh, fuck.
Oh, my God. That's why he makes the big bucks.
That's why he's the best.
He's fucking winking at us with that. Robert, like, yeah, the Dershowitz thing is insane. I have a feeling they're willing to cut Dershowitz loose, too.
I think he's fucked.
Yeah. I mean, he's old. He's probably not as sharp as he used to be. He's what, like 81?
I just don't think I just think he's of no use to these people, and he's completely like out for himself to salvage his own reputation and freedom at this point. Yeah. But I think he's been like he can only publish articles in Newsmax and go on Laura Ingram's show.
Yes.
Like he's been cut off from like his real sponsors.
Yeah, he wants to he's desperate. He wants to be in the New York Times again, writing like another article about like why Cinnabon's anti-Semitic because an Arab works there or something. But he's not going to get it. But he'll do anything.
Yeah, it's like all those articles about him getting kicked off Martha's Vineyard or whatever. And like, let's be clear, Martha's Vineyard is like fucking Wicker Man, Midsommar. I didn't see Midsommar.
Absolutely, it's one of the most satanic places on earth.
It is seriously. It is a nexus of dark energy and evil spirits. And they cast Dershowitz out, and that was the fact that the New York Times, which obviously is controlled by the deep state as well, published that and like hammered that point home. That is like a flare that only people with eyes that like are attuned to the kinds of light that only pedophiles can see. So,
okay, well, I guess like this is. I mean, like there's so many threads here, but like they all essentially lead through the same basic question that I have about this and what is becoming so fascinating about this whole Epstein conspiracy, which is basically this: is Jeffrey Epstein and everything surrounding this case, was he an asset of one or several intelligence agencies? Because it's very hard for me to given what we know about the fact that he more or less openly operated as a pimp and blackmailer in the procurement of underage women for the rich and powerful, more or less openly for decades. And that not only that, he also
yes.
more or less operated a completely fraudulent hedge fund, which again everybody knew was not actually a hedge fund, and he just for some reason had billions of dollars just given to him by incredibly wealthy people with no discernible evidence that he was like doing anything with their money.
And not just given billions of dollars. People like Les Wexner gave him power of attorney. That's unheard of.
Yeah.
That's fucking
No one does
insane.
Oh, and his entire pedigree to that point had been unqualified math teacher at the Dalton School, unqualified quant at Bear Stearns, a guy who'd been caught up in a fucking Ponzi scheme. That was what he was coming off of when Les Wexner just gave him a mansion, power of attorney, and like $500 million to start a hedge fund.
Well, before that year, Jeffrey Epstein said, "New year, new me," and he was right. He was like, this is my year.
But I was saying, what other explanation could possibly account for this? And like, if so, if we take that like as granted, like, what does this begin? Like, what does the shape of this story begin to look like?
Well, I think it's like very clear that he is. Like when Acosta was negotiating the federal immunity deal, in the early charges that he faced in Florida, where he got like federal immunity from just potential charges, which is like totally unheard of. He's on record. Acosta's on record saying that he was told he belonged to agencies and it was above his pay grade.
Yeah, he told that to the Trump transition team.
Yes. Basically, Epstein is a pedophile indigo child. Like he is insane. Like I just want to put some things in perspective here. The man who hired him at the Dalton School, which I myself am a graduate from.
You and Matt Iglesias?
Yes. Is Iglesias really a graduate?
Yep.
Brace.
He's involved. He's got to be involved.
Brace and Iglesias would like just spit ciphers in the Dalton parking lot. Give anything to go back to those days.
Felix, there's no parking lot. Come on, dude. It's Manhattan.
So the guy who hired him,
okay, fine.
Donald Barr, was an agent of the OSS in World War II. The OSS, as the virginal Chapo World War II nerd listeners will realize, is the precursor to the CIA, the Office of Strategic Services. So he got hired just out of nowhere by an OSS man. He gets hired by Greenberg, this guy Alan Greenberg at Bear Stearns. Alan Greenberg, I just want to make note here, was really good friends with Roy Cohn,
who also very well might have had a fucking blackmail ring among wealthy people in New York.
Also,
and was also McCarthy's lawyer way back in the day.
Alan Greenberg
and was a Bob lawyer.
Alan Greenberg was also the chairman of AIG and was forced out before AIG completely collapsed. He was a gigantic player in the insurance industry.
Roy Cohn was also Donald Trump's mentor in the 80s.
Also true, yes.
There are so many like intelligence agents in this story that it's literally impossible that Epstein himself. He said he fucking used to fly around in the 80s, or excuse me, in the 80s and the 90s, looking for recovering people's stolen money for the government. And he like worked for like African, like in Africa, doing who knows the fuck what. Like probably giving Idi Amin $6 million or something.
Well, that's the thing. It's like
whatever.
What money were we recovering from African dictators in the 80s? We were giving them that money on purpose.
Right.
They were our clients.
We were recovering the money from giving them the weapons.
And he's like, nobody's auditing Jonas Savimbi's books.
Exactly. The thing is like he's also like, there is a picture that just came out of Epstein and Clinton sort of like looking very relaxed, sort of leaning towards each other across the table.
It looks like they're about to record a podcast.
Well, someone else posted a picture of the inside of the Lolita Express, and it is the same. It's the same place.
Yeah, no, it's the point.
It is almost certain that picture was taken, or people are pretty certain that the picture was taken, like when they were visiting the fucking Sultan of Brunei, who is like probably the most noble of the CIA agents out there. But like it is.
Here's another, again, unfucking believable just digression to this story. Donald Barr, William Barr, the Attorney General's father, who gave Jeffrey Epstein his first teaching job.
Unqualified
at Dalton.
for. He was not a college graduate.
He had a high school education at that point. You're going to give him a job teaching math at a prestigious New York City private school. In addition to being an OSS agent, Donald Barr was a wannabe science fiction writer who wrote a book, the plot of which was that the main character is kidnapped by a race of ultra-rich, decadent aliens as a sex slave to take part in their weird rituals. And in the jacket copy for the book, it says that the alien race that owns the sex slaves do it because they were, quote, so bored with their wealth and power that they needed new heights of decadence to entertain their otherworldly lusts with.
Okay, there's an innocent explanation for all this. All these people are introverts and can't leave their circle. It takes a lot of energy for them.
Takes a lot of spoons.
Yeah.
Honestly, I get why he had to write that as like they were, let's say, cosmopolitan aliens.
But the thing about Epstein is that he was not qualified for any of the jobs he ever had, and the gloss on it was, well, he's a math genius. But there's no record of him ever showing any genius or aptitude to anything in his entire life. Which just if he was like doing cover for the thing he would want to do just to be more convincing. You'd have like an algorithm or something. The only thing he showed any aptitude for was being a pedophile. Which means that, he's like an indigo child. He's like the world's greatest pedophile. Well, and they literally it's like when they find the new Dalai Lama, they put like the implements in front of him and they see which one they pick out. It's like he picked out a fucking flight log or something, and then like he's the one, and they just raised him up through the ranks to be their procurer because somebody in that job has to be at a lower rank. You have to be beholden to you, or else he has an independent power source.
Well, he's the only person in the world who doesn't have imposter syndrome.
Do you ever like search for a subject in like the podcast thing, and you see all these podcasts with like 20 listeners or whatever, and it's like two guys talking into their phones, basically unedited. Think of how many versions, and they live in New York. Think of how many versions of Epstein there are that didn't make it, who just like live in Bushwick.
They've got an ankle monitor on. They're not allowed within 500 feet of a school. They've not been able to hold a job.
On Reddit.
Yeah.
Like they think they're just like this could be. They'll probably have me on someday. It's like it's.
They're still
together.
holding out to get noticed by the CIA.
They have
I could be a great asset. I promise.
They have like a car, and they're like, yeah, next year's year I'm getting a plane. Like I promise. I already like found the perfect one.
Brace Lolita Volvo.
Brace and Liz, let me ask you this: given that that's like what we are intuiting from the broad outline to this case and the just, again, manifold and insane connections to like everyone and everything that come up in it. Like, how do you guys like imagine or conceive of Epstein's role to one or several intelligence agencies?
Okay, so how do I conceive of the connection to one or several intelligence agencies?
But like, what did he do like for them other than the obvious? Like, how did this scheme work? What did he do for them?
So going back to the whole history of American intelligence, not even talking about intelligence agencies from other countries, they have been closely linked to the mob and just to crime in general, right? So it could be that Epstein started totally on his own and just like, you worked as basically a pimp for these people and kind of like a money manager. They're kind of guy they went to. Les Wexner is the only proven guy, but then there's Leon Black and stuff. And my theory, and the theory actually I just stole from somewhere that I read, but it makes sense to me, is that he would have these parties. These people would be videotaped. They would be presented with the videotape or be, sort of implied that it existed and told the age of the girl or whatever. And then they would be asked to put money into this hedge fund. Because from what I understand, he had like no staff on the hedge fund. It was just him like putting it into like a computer program or whatever. The CIA, obviously they knew about this, man. Like, come on. But I'm guessing that they probably kind of use that as maybe a slush fund for off-the-book stuff, kind of like similar to Benko Ambrosiano during Operation Gladio. It's interesting, too, that, like, he really consorted with a lot of politicians as well. Like they say that there's a well-known prime minister that's going to be named in these documents. People think – Matt, who did you think it was?
I think that's Barack, right?
No, dude, that's Tony Blair.
It's got to be Tony Blair.
It's Tony Blair.
Okay, I haven't seen him being
Allegedly.
mentioned, but I wouldn't be surprised, certainly.
It's allegedly going to be Tony Blair having sex with a child on videotape.
I mean, it
Allegedly.
reminds me so much of what you hear about Scientology, that it's just like cultivating like troves and troves and troves of like possible blackmail just to keep really powerful people in check for like a rainy day.
But like, wait a second, like, wouldn't this all not work? Isn't like the effectiveness of this strategy of blackmail, doesn't it also rely on the fact that like a ton of rich and powerful people, like for lack of a better word, like fucking children?
Well, I mean, I don't know. Like, if it's like, I bet that some drunk 65-year-old lawyer who's got $1 billion could probably be seduced by a 16-year-old without like internally telling himself that he's a pedophile.
I have a different. I honestly don't really buy the blackmail thing.
Okay, what do you got?
I think that he provides a service. I think that he is a trusted source for stuff these guys like to do, because some of them are pervs who genuinely have these attractions. Otherwise, I think that there is a ritualistic element to this abuse that's not necessarily involves like real Moloch worship or anything, but that involves at the highest levels a communal violations of taboos and hyper-exploitation of vulnerable people to express and solidify bonds. Basically, just high-level, depraved networking.
Yeah.
And then you need to be able to do that in a comfortable, safe environment where maybe there's a CIA agent at the door who's going to make sure that like some fucking Chinese guy isn't there with a fucking USB that can just get all this stuff so that President Xi can just fucking wreck everybody's shit, you know, tomorrow afternoon if he finds out about it. And so they're paying for the discretion. The blackmail stuff, I think, is more related to why he always involves these political figures and like the high level, like all the arts people and the scientists. It's to keep a buffer of powerful people who are vulnerable if he gets in trouble, and that means that he also protects everybody else involved in the network. And that because the thing is, if it's blackmail, they're not going to keep going to him, right? People are going to be like, don't go to fucking Epstein's island. He'll blackmail you. It's go to Epstein's island. You got to pay for it, but it's worth it. Or you got to go to Epstein's island because we're all doing this and we don't trust you unless you do it too. You're not going to be in on it unless you do it too. I don't think
those two theories are mutually exclusive. I think that, you know, traditionally in this line of business, pimps and whatnot, the blackmail and the presiding at service go hand. I'm not calling him a pimp in a cool sense, it's a pejorative. I think that these things go hand in hand. You provide the service when necessary, and then maybe sometimes when you're given a nudge by a certain handler, you might do some blackmail. I mean, obviously, it is all blackmail to begin with, like at its core, because he has the fucking video. If this was just providing a service, you would not be opening up a safe with young name plus allegedly Tony Blair.
No, but see, that's the dead man switch. That's the protection. It's not necessarily something that they're using to extract these money from these rich guys.
Oh, no, not at all. I don't think so either, but I think that provides like,
But that's why, I mean, comparing it to Scientology, I think is instructive, because it's supposedly the same thing that Scientology does in order to like keep you in the ranks and kind of keep you closed in their like, you know, whole pyramid scheme, is that you have to go through all these levels and you like hook yourself up to these things and you tell them your deepest, darkest secrets. And then they're like, haha, we got it on you. Now you can't say shit about what we do. And it kind of like protects the group. It's like herd immunity, but for perverts.
Okay. So Matt brought up the idea that there is like a ritual element to all of this through which the bonds of people at the heights of power are consecrated and their relationships are sort of sanctified in a sick and like kind of satanic way amongst each other.
Absolutely.
Through, like the, ritual and actual brutal exploitation and cruelty towards the most vulnerable, aka the young, children.
Yes.
So this gets into what the fuck is going on with that temple on his island.
So if you look at the temple from a bird's eye view, if you look down at the temple and you see those strange sort of like designs in the front, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Kind of on like the I don't know what you would call it, just the area in front of the temple. There's a path leading down from the end of it, from the left end of it, if you're looking down facing the barred door. And if you turn that path into like a straight black line, it spells pedo. So obviously, what's going on there? There's been sort of these drone footage, and you're able to see inside. There is what appears to be a twin bed in there with like a balled up T-shirt as a mattress and a ladder.
Just like a Brooklyn apartment.
Exactly. Yes. I mean, obviously, I believe that there is a fucking elevator that goes down to like a subterranean sex torture chamber. I can't prove that yet, but the bed itself is worrisome because all the story, I mean, it's not worrisome. I mean, it's obviously, it's pointing us in the right direction, but all the things that people posited about it, that it was a music room, that it was a storage shed, which is a really bizarre thing to say. No, it's a bed and the door bars from the outside.
I don't know, Brace.
So,
I keep all of my old bicycles and clothes inside the black obelisk.
Yeah, true. And they have the fucking sundial, dude. The sundial. No, I'm sorry. No non-Wiccan human has a fucking sundial on their island. And the thing is, it's underreported. He also has an island called Big St. James Island,
St.
right
James,
next to Little St. James.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's been no reporting on that I can find.
Brace, it's basically like Ilsa Nublar and Ilsa Sorna in the Jurassic Park world.
I bet he does have like DNA mutant experiments on that island of some kind.
Absolutely. He's trying to make a younger woman.
That's where he plays the most dangerous game.
Yes.
What if, I mean, the ultimate end game, it's not that he has a dead man switch of blackmail. He has a dead man switch of T-Rexes that will be released in major American cities.
Well, that wouldn't be a problem with me. I could easily outsmart it and then sort of take it down with a trap, probably involving like construction vehicles, something like that, a crane, perhaps.
Well, as an empath, I would be able to speak to the T-Rex.
Yeah,
so checkmate, Mr. Epstein.
Here's the thing, though. Like the obviously, like there's all this talk about the island. What are we going to do about the island? Is anyone on the island? It doesn't appear that anyone's on there right now. Although I'm sure there are some like fucking Morlocks down there guarding whatever secrets. But the obvious solution is that somebody goes to an island, to the island. Somebody has to go.
We'll do a fucking like a D-Day landing and just occupy that fucking island.
Exactly. Occupy Epstein.
Well, there's a pretty good DSA chapter on that island.
Yeah. Well, it's YDSA.
Oh my god!
I wonder if this episode is going to get us in trouble.
Thank God.
Dude, they haven't let us upload ours to iTunes yet. It's just on SoundCloud.
Okay. Well, okay. Here's another, and Brace, you told me about this is like, again, like if your brain isn't melted by the end of this episode, we haven't done our job. Okay. DynCorp.
Dynacorp.
Dynacorp. Yeah.
DynCorp.
Dinocorp.
DinoCorp. Again, it's dinos.
They make the T-Rexes.
So DynCorp is basically like a catch-all CIA contractor company. They do like trains for people. They do transportation. They just do all the shit that the CIA. It's the CIA, right? It's like it's a security contractor. They call themselves a global service provider. But they do a lot of flight stuff. They are very famous for doing a lot of fucked up stuff, but most famously for a child sex slavery ring in Bosnia in the 90s, and then later another child sex slavery ring in Afghanistan much more recently. Of course, Epstein is linked in like a million ways, and then there's like Leon Black that's linked to him, that's linked to fucking Blackwater.
Yeah.
Which is like directly linked to them, own fucking Blackwater, basically.
Through Apollo Management, right?
I can't remember what it's called. They all have all these fucking names. I got it written down somewhere. But Epstein's plane shared a fucking tail number with a DynCorp plane. And Epstein borrowed a DynCorp plane to go to his fucking sex ranch in 2002. Literally, like, he is like inseparable from them. That's really, I think, an important link is the link to Blackwater and the link to DynCorp. Because a lot of it, like in the 90s, there was a huge epidemic of sex slavery coming out of the former Yugoslavia, because they would take these sort of desperate and white women and they would ship them to New York, where people like Epstein would either sign them up to Victoria's Secret models or keep them in sexual bondage for years. It's a pretty important link, and we'll be going on to. We're actually going to have a guest from the Balkans to describe this to us in an episode, but it is insane.
And then you said, what about Dan Blazarian? Sort of like a tech bro extraordinaire.
He's not really a tech bro.
What is he?
Okay, so Dan Blitzerian's
He's
dad
a mafia guy.
Right, Dan Blitzerian's dad was a financial criminal, more or less, who embezzled like vast, like 8-figure sums. Dan went on to be washed out of Bud's training and become a poker player.
Okay.
But he has no real involvement. No, I mean he's founded a few websites and shit, but I wouldn't really call him a tech bro or a tech guy.
I mean, he sells he's got like a weed company. It's
I thought his whole thing was just like Instagram posts with girls. Isn't that what he does?
And they're girls, but they're also like, guys like Dan Bilzerian, who by the way has no chin, and I could beat his fucking ass allegedly. Bilzerian doesn't just like hang out with girls because girls want to hang out with Dan Bilzerian. Bilzerian gets modeling agencies like the ones that Epstein worked with to supply him with people who kind of straddle the line between prostitute and model. The other thing is Dan Bilzerian's, he's a big gambler, right? Like he's always telling these stories about he gambled $500,000 and lost it and it wasn't a thing. Because Dan Bilzerian is laundering money for people. And he posted a picture a couple of years ago where he is flying above a series of islands. And if you look closely, and if you put it next to a picture of the islands next to the, Little St. James, you realize that he's flying directly above St. James Island. There is virtually no way that Bilzerian and Epstein aren't connected. And especially because Bilzerian's whole thing is basically hiring prostitutes to hang out with him in like a rented private plane. It's almost certain that he allegedly was connected to the circles that Epstein himself allegedly either trafficked in or ran himself.
Allegedly.
Yeah, all this is alleged, by the way.
This is all
hard alleged.
And we're not alleging this. Others have alleged it. We're just, saying what they've said.
But back to like that. Basically, Epstein's plane was registered with a private security contractor associated with the CIA that's already been associated with not one but two human trafficking networks.
Garrett, there's more than that. I think they were associated with one in Haiti too. I know the Clinton initiative was, and actually there was a bunch of sex rings going on in Haiti pretty much since the 90s, or I'm sure before, but since the 90s that I know about. And yes, absolutely. Like it's Bilzerian shared the tail number, and he shared a fucking plane. He used one of their planes to go to his sex ranch.
This is Epstein,
I think that
not Bilzerian.
This is Epstein.
Okay, yeah.
No, yeah, Bilzerian is not a rancher. You can tell by his jawline.
The darkest endpoint of all of this is realizing this is about global human trafficking and drug trafficking, and everyone is involved. That's the probably craziest, darkest end.
I literally I just Googled Dan Bilzerian in quotes and Epstein, and that was the first thing that came up. If you just Google anybody who has $2 million, they're friends with Epstein. Have you seen that thing about his black? Have you read the Black Book?
No, what's this?
All this. It's his list of phone numbers and people.
Oh, right, yeah.
He has the fucking the grandchildren, or excuse me, the great grandchildren of the fucking Kaiser in there.
Oh my God! Literally, the guy from the end of the Hellfish Simpsons episode is in Jeffrey Epstein's Black Book.
It's insane. He has everybody in there, and it's obviously that doesn't prove anything. But the flight logs. I think it's people talk about the flight logs, but with the butler, the person who really turned over the flight logs originally. Or who turned over the Black Book, excuse me. He said there were names circled in red that he circled. And his ex-butler, who died of probably the same cancer that Hugo Chavez died of, you know what I mean?
Oh, wait, okay, so actually I was just going to bring up this butler thing, because again, I saw this through you, and again, it's just you read this and you're like, what the fuck? What the fuck?
Yeah, man.
He said, okay, Epstein's butler did 5 months longer in jail than Epstein did for the crime of not turning over his Black Book to investigators, which he claimed he needed as a form of life insurance, and now he's dead.
Yes. He died of cancer, which he got, and then 6 months later he died of.
Yeah, terrible life insurance.
Yeah. Well, he lost the book, and he was fined, I think, he was fined as well, and then sentenced to, a year and a half in jail. Insane. But he had circled certain names in red, and he had said that these people were involved. I believe there was like Spacey, Chris Tucker, Ghislaine Maxwell, obviously. But that hasn't really been reported on too much. I think it might be a little too close to home for certain magazines and newspapers.
Wasn't Dodi El-Fayed in the book too? Or was it his brother or something? Like the connections with the royal family is super fascinating to me as well.
It just was reported that apparently Prince Andrew and the Queen have been talking about his connection to Epstein and what it's going to do to the family.
You're killing your mother, Andy.
You're killing your mother, Andy. You're killing your mother, if that was possible, but we know it's not.
So Prince Andrew is Fredo, and Jeffrey Epstein is Mo Green.
There's a really weird conspiracy theory that I really like, unsurprisingly, which is, do you remember when Kevin Spacey, like, when he got axed, or he went down, or he got canceled, whatever, and he did that weird YouTube video where he was like in character. Okay.
Yes, I remember.
So
that.
at the end of that video, which is like so weird for so many reasons, least of which is just like I'm imagining him talking to his personal assistant, like, we're gonna do this right now. Like no one else is involved. It's just his idea. So he at the end, he takes a sip from a mug and like shows the mug to the camera. And that mug has the like something about like God save the Queen. And so all these conspiracy theorists are saying it was like a message to the royal family.
I talked about this on the other podcast I did with Nick. So the mug is a commemoration of the Queen's coronation in 1951. And it's got the seal on it. It says Westminster Abbey, 2nd of June, 1953. And then it has a quote from her, presumably from her coronation. It says, "Throughout all my life and with all my heart, I shall strive to be worthy of your trust." And then
I'm sorry.
Spacey's main accuser on the stand pleads the fifth, and the case goes away.
It's done.
It's dead.
Free man.
Dead in the water. And there was a outpouring of not exactly the most convincing accounts on Twitter being like, "See, look, I always said he was innocent." Like kind of bot looking accounts.
That's unfair to say about my account.
Yeah, I can't believe Chris Tucker is involved in this.
I know, I was wrong. I thought it wasn't him, but it is. It's the rush hour guy.
Same thing happened to me. I was like, oh, it's not really Chris Tucker, but it's fucking Chris Tucker.
And is Chris Tucker's name underlined in red?
No, he's just on.
Yeah.
He was on the African trip, the notorious African trip with Spacey and Clinton.
Matt, don't make me send you the picture of Chris Tucker, Bill Clinton, and Michael Jackson.
I know it exists.
I mean, we could probably talk about this all day, but I want to just like sort of reframe here at the end with like a larger like big picture question. Like Brace and Liz, like you brought up at the beginning of the show this idea of kind of like false flag conspiracies. Like QAnon and Pizzagate, which we've made fun of heavily on this show, but yet like at a certain level begins to look more and more realistic in certain ways. However, at the same time, it's like you look into like, who is promoted and, disseminated these ideas or memes or conspiracy theory in our culture. And it's all people who are actually connected to this like literal satanic human trafficking community. But I want to say like broader about like conspiracy theories and how like seductive and easy to get involved or like, go down this rabbit hole. For instance, like we know for a fact that the U.S. Air Force propagated much of what became like the UFO mythology in this country during like the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Like they've pretty much copped to that, like of seeding like fake documents showing that the Air Force was dealing with flying saucers to like certain influencers or conspiracy people to make it seem like they were, as a kind of way of distracting people from the shit that they're really up to. And I guess what I'm asking is like, how is there any way to know that this is all leading us down the wrong path, or is there anything politically useful out of this other than just of how insane and entertaining it all is?
Well, the depravity of has like never. I mean, fucking Catherine the Great got fucked by a horse. You know what I mean? Like these people have been depraved since the beginning of time.
Allegedly.
Well, no, I think
she's very litigious.
I've spoken to the horse, ridden it too, if you know what I mean.
Alan Dershowitz represents Catherine the Great. David Boyce represents the horse.
He sued a Russian peasant for $7 million. But so it's like there's a lot of there, and there is a lot of disinformation. We're trying to come at this from like a realistic perspective, which is like I don't think that the Jews are behind it, which is kind of what QAnon is saying. I think that there are some of my people behind it, yes, but we're behind everything, so it doesn't really make any difference.
We're high achievers.
Exactly. I mean, it doesn't really. There's like nothing we can do right now, basically, and like that is like that. I've like been trying to. Well, I mean, we could do the same stuff that we would do otherwise, which is like try to like make sure all rich people go to prison, which would probably sort out a lot of these problems. But it's and like make sure the prison is like a hole that like they can't get out of. But yeah, like it does kind of boggle the mind because it's like, well, what can I do about it? Like I can't go arrest these people. I can't I don't know where the fuck Ghislaine Maxwell is right now.
No one does.
But the thing is, like in court, this will never come out. So it is like, and this cannot just be like the territory of like kind of the Alex Jones, who is also kind of a disinformation guy because he puts in real stuff next to fake stuff. This has to be looked at with clear eyes and also with people with minds that can only say the word Epstein.
Matt, when you were on the podcast talking about the Dutroux affair, I mean, I think it is good to remember that when all of that was happening, like almost 400,000 people in Belgium were out in the streets protesting.
Yep.
Like it ended up bringing down a lot of the government, and its legacy in Belgium has been like really terrible for all the politicians there.
Yeah, they've been they haven't really had a functional government since then.
Yeah.
But also at the same time, nothing would ever really came from it. Dutroux is still in jail. He's never followed up on anything he is or anyone else has said. The thing I think that's so fascinating about this, and the reason I think a lot of people are fixating on it, not just because it's got a lot of meme potential, which obviously it does, but because in a world where, as Felix likes to point out, everything is always the same every day, only somehow slightly worse, and it doesn't feel like there's any way out of anything. This whole Epstein thing felt like it was maybe a chance to get some sort of revelation, some reckoning, some peek through the miasma at like the actual workings of power that are obscured by the daily fire hydrant of idiocy and bullshit that we're trying to reckon with. And then the fact that the fucking came out, they were willing to do the thing of just in public, in front of everyone, with all of the fucking world's attention on it, try to murk the motherfucker in jail. Honestly, I feel like that's a 2-for-1. Like if it works, hey, good. Epstein's done for. We don't have to worry about it anymore. But honestly, one way or the other, even if it works or not, what we're getting the message from is that you can't win. There will be no revelation. There will be no reckoning, no matter what. We run this shit. And you walk out every day knowing what happened, knowing that they were willing to do that they were willing to hire some greaseball to try to fucking murk Epstein in front of everybody when it's the biggest domestic story going, without any fear that people are going to go, what the fuck? Because all they can do is say, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And there's nothing else to do about it.
This is something that I said like at the end of Fighting in the Age of Loneliness, and it's that we do like this is an irregular age because we are defined by a complete lack of conclusions. There's no like tight bow on anything. There's no even definitive bad ending. Everything just goes on and on and on forever. We never even get new people. We're just recycling the same fucking assholes forever.
Same around Contra people.
Right. But it changes. Enough things are crazy. Enough things tease at the idea that things will burst open or stop or explode or wither and die in some way, and don't. That it, just the perfect amount that it drives people even more insane. That it drives our concept of time even more insane. That we lose our concept of linear time. We lose our context for the past, for other events, for events in our own lives. And it exacerbates the feeling of being beaten down. If you really want, like, you know, nothing to come of this, the answer isn't like that you terrorize normal people. It's that you just beat them down every fucking day. So even if they do see something like this, they're just like, oh, that's fucked up. All right, I guess I have to like go to my job to afford, you know, $75,000 of medication, or, you know, I have to worry that my rent isn't going to increase by 50% this year, or and then they just get these little bursts of stimulus that are enough to make them go, what is happening to the world, but not enough to make them go, maybe it's more fragile than it seems. Maybe we're at the end of the cycle. Just what the fuck?
Yeah, I think also it's like you said meme potential earlier, and it's like almost even more than that, because I think like people are very desperate. Like each time there's some like crazy revelation about Donald Trump, or even like starting with the election and like every subsequent event that happened after that, it's like, surely this shall be the time that the fever breaks. Like surely something will change, you know, like waiting for like just as crazier and crazier as it gets, like you say, that it has to collapse on itself, but it's not.
No, it's just
and I think
going.
that like, yeah, and I think like reckoning with that and that system is like really important, you know, because that's going to be, you know, you have to kind of like re-theorize and rework and say, well, okay, if the system isn't going to collapse on itself, then what do we do?
It just feels like the gesture that encompasses the moment is a shrug. Because all you can do is shrug at the shit. We're like fucking Clooney and Syriana. No matter what happens, all you can do is fucking shrug.
This is something I used to say about like 9/11 conspiracy theorists, like back when I was like, you know, an online left lib as like a 13-year-old would be like, how do you believe in, you know, the Mossad blowing up the WTC or Lizard Man or whatever, any of these ridiculous things, and then you like go on, like your next post is like, yo, is anyone looking to buy some speakers? You know, and I would always make fun of that, and I would use that as like sort of proof that they don't really believe this. And now, as an older person, now as someone who's, you know, more of a West Wing liberal, I'd say I am now. But, you know, someone who, reads about Les Wexner and Prince Andrew and Iran-Contra and the Lincoln credit ring and all this shit. And then I'm like, all right, enough of that. I'm going to go play Fortnite Battle Royale with my friends. It's like, yeah, that's just like adulthood. You just, whatever crazy thing you find or think about obsessively, and then you're like, all right, I'm thinking about getting a new mouse pad. Because in America, it's very hard to keep thinking about that.
Well, it's also like, it's kind of that, what did they call it? Analysis paralysis.
Yeah.
You know, where it's like you go through all these like wormholes and you're like, you're connecting the dot and you're just like, I mean, it just paralyzes you because it's so overwhelming and also totally insane, but probably true that you're just like frozen, you know?
Mm-hmm. Here's the thing. I am probably the only person on this podcast who ever arrested a pedophile before. We arrested probably two alleged pedophiles. I don't know. I mean, they were in ISIS, which, you know, they do that kind of stuff. You can make your dreams a reality. I just want to say that to anybody. Like, I had Syria brain. I still do to some respect and to extent. Now I have Epstein brain. And there's tunnels on that island. And I don't think that island is guarded. People can get there. You can go in the tunnel. If you did a Periscope from the tunnel where you talked about your kids and shit and just like regular stuff, but you're in the and people like got it that you were an approachable Periscope person, and then they saw you in the pedophile tunnel, you could change a lot of people's minds.
I would suggest that there could be something politically useful here if if you're a listener of the show who has sort of like boomer liberal parents who were really into Robert Mueller and Russia.
Yes.
If you got them hooked on this Epstein tip of, like I said, a conspiracy that has the added benefit of being all real and also like genuinely insane and interesting, unlike this Robert Mueller shit. However, the huge stumbling block there is that they will have to, sort of remove from themselves their residual affection and adoration of the Clinton family.
They'll have to cancel their faves.
But that's a 2-for-1 because you need them to get rid of that affection.
Exactly. So, like, if this is a gateway drug to getting, like, Facebook boomer liberals involved in this, and you could get them interested in it, and through this sort of cleave them from the just awful satanic Clinton family, who are still adored by these fucking people, despite all of like I said, like, forget everything we knew about Bill Clinton before this Epstein shit. They weren't ready to hear even that. and you combine that with this, it's like, come on, what more do you fucking need to know about these people? They're not your friends.
What we want to do with the podcast is get into, like, Epstein, like someone was saying before, is connected to all of this shit. Like, he is connected to Iran-Contra. He is fucking connected to some of the fucking Gladio people. So it's like, by exposing the fact that this isn't just some like crazy conspiracy you read about on like realnewsmax.ir or whatever. It's fucking like, it's a real thing. They're actually doing it, and there's a political reason that they're doing it. Like, it's not just like, well, it's slightly Kabbalist, but like, it's important to expose the links here because it's important that people understand that these things happen. They're not just like Iran-Contra isn't just some piece of history that you kind of like, it's not like World War II. You're like, oh, wow, that's crazy that happened, man. Fuck.
No, Brace, you brought it up. The people who did it are fucking currently in the government right now doing it again.
Oliver North was the president of NRA until like 2 years ago. Oliver North.
The current attorney general helped sign off on the fucking pardons that put the capstone on the first Iran-Contra investigation.
And his fucking dad hired Epstein.
The head of Trump's transition team. The head of Trump's transition team was a key Iran-Contra figure. These people never go away. No one ever fucking goes away. They just recycle fucking everybody all the fucking time.
Because they're part of it. They're part of the people who the fucking atlases who hold this shit together. They're like, why would they ever be able to go away? They know too much shit.
Yeah, I guess my whole thing is I think a lot of people like to write the CIA off. Like, well, they used to do all this stuff, but you don't really hear about them anymore. Like, they just do data collection now. Or like, the FBI used to do COINTELPRO, but they would never do anything like that anymore. It's like different. It's like James Comey. They're still fucking doing it.
Yeah, this show right now, all of us are CIA operatives.
We punch in every day.
We sign checks. But that's not a joke, because the funny thing is this is why this is truly maddening. And it's like, because I like talking about this, this is real. I feel like this is real. I feel like we're talking about a real thing. But I know that there are people out there who are as committed to be grounding in their analysis, who are also 1,000% convinced that you and all of us are also CIA operatives, and that this is all a propaganda operation, that this fucking podcast and yours is a propaganda operation. And I know that's not true, though.
Days.
Yes.
I know. That's what blows my mind, is because there are insane conspiracy theories about me that aren't true. That like, and it's like, well, then what? Who cares? Like,
how am I supposed to know what I know is true?
Exactly. Maybe I am a fucking CIA agent.
Honestly, that would, if I found out I was a CIA agent, that would be more reassuring, because that's like, oh, I don't have to differentiate. It's just all true. On it. It's all true.
At least I don't have to work at Anchor anymore.
Well, this is Metal Gear Solid 2, the most brilliant game of all time, predicted that information would be controlled not through censorship, but by an overwhelming deluge where you can't determine what's true and what's not.
Yep.
Well,
yeah.
I think we should leave it there. I mean, there are so many proofs in this episode for you, the listener, to follow yourself. But I would like to say, if you want more proofs, you should listen to the TrueAnon podcast with Brace and Liz. If you'd like to hear Matt on TrueAnon, he's already recorded an episode that's out with them, which you go into more detail about the Belgian case.
Yes, the Dutroux affair is fucking insane.
I mean, like, we didn't even talk about that at all, but like, just
it is a fucking mind wipe.
No, like I had no idea what this shit was until like 2 weeks ago when Matt put me onto it, and it is so literally unbelievable and blood curdling that you cannot believe it's true, and it is all 1,000% real.
Yeah.
It's fucking Gladio.
Another thing you should look into. Operation Gladio. Another thing that is real that seems like it can't be real in a world that makes sense.
You know how every one of those fucking Wap Dagos in Italy was a member of the Communist Party from the late fucking 40s until like 1991, and they never won an election? It's because of Gladio.
Yep. The mob, the CIA, and the Vatican all working together.
I would also,
my God,
the strategy of tension, the years of lead, Bologna train station, Aldo Moro.
Fucking we're gonna be hanging from Blackfriars Bridge with fucking 6 stones in each fucking pocket. Look up, anyone listening to this, look up P2 Lodge.
P2 Masonic Lodge. Propaganda due.
Oh my God.
Well,
this is exactly why they offed Kubrick.
That might be true too, though. Is the thing?
I think it's true.
Look at Eyes Wide Shut.
I've just been spinning the cylinder on a revolver in my bedroom, pacing for the last 10 minutes.
Well, Brace, Liz, I want to thank you guys for coming on. I want to thank you for your brave work hunting down the pedos.
Thank you. We're going to solve it.
I just want to be clear, if we disappeared and then like our bodies are later found and then like the police are like, oh, we found a bunch of child porn on their computer. Like, you know, they're totally disgraced. You can't trust them. In my case, it's not true. In Liz's case, it is.
So once again, Brace and Liz, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank
and
you.
again, like, you know, just again,
Stay sane.
the disease is vibrating inside me now. The disease is talking to me right now. It has a will and mind of its own. But yeah,
Epstein on the main brain.
if you'd like more of this, if you'd like to go even deeper down the rabbit hole, TrueAnon podcast. There will be links in the show description. Once again, thanks so much for joining. PG-13 level of horror.
Yeah, no, if you know, today's special. Today's like the only day of the year where you can just sort of like in real life reference to pun-related internet meme that will be dead in a year and service your active alcoholism. It's a good day for most listeners.
You've been visited by Salafist Felix again.
I mean, honestly, like all you need to do is look at Halloween and
Saeed Khatib was clearly correct.
yeah. I'm going to combine Vaporwave and Salafism with just images of Brooklyn Halloween. Oh, look at me. I'm Succession, but also Long Cat. Cool. That shit's awesome, dude.
Well, we have got definitely probably one of our spookiest guests of all time for this special Halloween.
Well, I mean, in the term of, you know, intelligence aspect.
Yes. In every sense of the word, yes. One of our spookiest guests of all time, here to talk about definitely some things that will give you the creepies. I am, of course, talking about Brace, one half of TrueAnon, and, you know, a sicko hunter par excellence. Brace, how you doing?
Fine witches' greetings to you on this Halloween.
Happy Samhain. Brace, we're happy to have you on because there are, you know, two big stories that I think I've been wanting to talk about for a while that I think fall right in your wheelhouse. I'm speaking, of course, about just what the fuck is going on in Syria with the Kurds and Turkey right now. All bad, pretty much, but I'd like to know more. And then, of course, we would also like to follow up with you about all of the new and latest developments in, of course, our favorite, the Jeffrey Epstein case. What's our motto? Epstein ain't going away.
Epstein ain't going away, baby. Pedophile 9/11.
I mean, it was
He's
funny.
up there in heaven doing the monster mash.
I mean, it's funny. I mean, when we had you on, you had started doing TrueAnon, and then we had you and Liz on to discuss the first attempt on his life. And then, like 2 weeks later, prayers up, our boy, he passed on. So, I mean, we should have had you on almost immediately after that. But, like, I mean, there's still shit going on with this that I know you've been following up on, and I want to talk about it. But before we get to that, let's dip into the foreign policy and things going on around the world, and specifically just like Turkey and Syria. So could you maybe elucidate for our listeners and probably just me in general, just like the state of play there, like what, you know, over the last couple of weeks since you know, Turkey has begun, I guess, this, you know, ethnic cleansing campaign in northern Syria.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing is we have to go back a little and see basically the PYD, the Kurdish like political party, like the political wing of the YPG, their militia, their sort of relations with America. So obviously America has been in northern Syria for a little while now, but a lot of people don't realize is that the U.S. has actually been blocking the YPG and the PYD from all peace negotiations. Like they wouldn't let them attend like the sort of all Syria summit. They blocked them from going to the ones in Russia. And so the YPG has been unable to essentially be at the bargaining table at any point since the war started. So that's something to keep in mind. And they've also been blocking their relations with Damascus. So when America, you know, dismantled their border defenses and then gave the green light for Turkey to invade, obviously there was a pretty big outcry about that. And it's a lot of calls about there's going to be ethnic cleansing, that like there might be something akin to a genocide, which it technically does meet the legal definitions for both of those. But the Syrian National Army, which is basically another rebranding of the Turkish-backed FSA, because I think everyone was just calling them the Turkish-backed FSA at that point. I think that was a little too
sorry,
on the
just real
nose for
quick,
them.
remind us and our listeners what the FSA is again.
Oh, excuse me. Yeah, the FSA is the Free Syrian Army, which was originally a bunch of different opposition groups, and now is basically just all jihadists. And in terms of like the Turkish-backed Free Syrian Army, they had invaded the northeastern part of Syria, Afrin, and now control that. That was previously like a Kurdish-controlled area, and all the usual stuff, making people force conversions of like Yazidis, looting people's houses, not suicides, murder, etc. So now they're invading northeastern Syria, and it has not gone insanely well for them. Like, the Turkish army is not a great army, and the Turkish-backed FSA is not like a great fighting force either. So they didn't get incredibly far, but there was such a big outcry since they have been invading that eventually they were basically made to come to the bargaining table with Russia, because the Syrian army, who Russia backs, actually moved up and joined the YPG on the front lines there.
The Syrian army, just like to keep everything straight here, the Syrian army being essentially what is like Assad's military.
Yeah, his guys. Okay. Yeah, the actual Syrian army. They actually had some sort of positions in some of the major city or a couple of the major cities in northern Syria, alongside the YPG since the beginning of the war. And now they're moving up basically in a thin strip between, acting as basically a buffer between the YPG and Turkey.
So what, so when Erdogan went ahead with this, what is the Turkish state's goal with this little invasion that they're doing now?
So there's 3.5 million refugees in Turkey, which is a lot. And Turkey is not a rich country, and there's a lot of it's been a lot of sort of ethnic tension there because, of course, most of the refugees are Arabs, and Arabs sometimes don't get along. I mean, it's the same thing as there's racists there as well. And the whole plan here was basically hitting two birds with one stone. Was to get the YPG out, and then also to put 2 million refugees in a 30 by 440 kilometer wide strip of a demilitarized zone, basically, or an actually extremely militarized zone, but a YPG free zone.
So the idea is a twofold: to move a large refugee population out of Turkey and create a buffer zone on the border between Turkey and what would be, I guess, a Kurdish state.
Yeah, I mean, which would hopefully they I think they just wanted the whole thing to collapse. But yeah, I mean, and if you think about that too, moving 2 million refugees into this pretty lightly populated area that's traditionally Kurdish and Assyrian, that amounts essentially to ethnic cleansing too, because that totally changes the demographics of the area, which Erdogan has repeatedly said needs to happen. He's the Kurds don't like the desert. They need to be in the mountains. Arabs are good at the desert. We'll put them there.
And who would you describe, or who are the groups actually, I guess, sort of at the tip of the spear of this policy by Erdogan? Who are the people that is going across the border and doing this fighting and ethnic cleansing? So
do you remember when that group Al-Zinki cut off that 12-year-old boy's head on video?
Yeah, that was not cool.
Okay, well, President Obama, the other day he said something I truly agree with, where he said the real world is messy, and canceling people on Twitter isn't activism. And people you disagree with, they have kids that they love, and sometimes they do things you don't agree with. That's all I'm going to say about Al-Zinki.
So it's guys like that. It's. I mean,
these are head choppers and marauders,
literal actual head choppers. Yeah, I mean, there was a famous photo of when they invaded Afrin. There was just a guy with a mask on with a huge ass knife, raising it over his head in the middle of the town square. So it's those kind of guys. They're all pretty much every group involved has been accused of war crimes. credibly accused of war crimes, and like consistently loots houses and murders civilians. And I mean, famously, right after they invaded, they killed a Kurdish politician, a woman, drug her from her car, shot at her driver, and then shot her after torturing her. And that was like the second day after the invasion started. So there are also, I think, 13 of the like 19 groups in it have been directly armed and funded by the United States before this.
Now, is the actual Turkish military, are they involved in this, or are they just like providing support and using what used to, I guess, like the remnants of these militias and as their kind of cat's paw in this, or like how's that working?
Yeah, I mean the Syrian National Army, there's no way in hell that they could take any of this territory on their
own. You mean the Turkish National Army?
No, well, both
okay,
of them.
Both of them. Yeah, okay, yeah.
The Turkish-backed FSA, the Syrian National Army, whatever you want to call them, are not great fighters, which is why they have been based in Turkey for the past couple of years. And so they wouldn't be able to take any of this without the artillery support, the tank support, the air support of the Turkish Army and Air Force. But yeah, Turkish troops are fighting alongside them too.
Okay, so now you mentioned that I like for a while there was sort of a ceasefire. Is that over now?
So yeah, there's been like a couple attempts at a ceasefire, but ceasefires in Syria are just like fake. They're just like, it's like an internet thing. It's not real. There was a ceasefire. I think there was, that's Trump put those sanctions on Turkey and then like took them off a couple days later because of this sort of fig leaf of a ceasefire. But no, the fighting hasn't stopped at all. In fact, it's like intensified in a lot of places. So no, the ceasefire is basically a way for Trump to cover his ass.
And like, as best you can understand it, like, what was I mean, obviously, like you said, Erdogan has wanted to do this for a long time.
Yeah.
What, like, if any reason can you discern for Trump and like, the American state, like our acquiescence to this?
So, I mean, it's been said since the beginning by first Obama and then Trump that like they weren't allied with the YPG. It was like a transactional relationship, and Trump ended that transaction. I think they realized that Turkey is a huge weapons market and a member of NATO. And they're, of course, getting closer to Russia, too, with their purchase of this new anti-aircraft system from Russia, blah, blah, blah. And they chose Turkey over the YPG, which they were always going to do. There was never any doubt. The real thing that, like, sticks in my craw is them denying the YPG the ability to negotiate with anybody during this whole time. But now Trump's idea is that they're going to move American troops down to Deir ez-Zor, which is the southeastern, like, most sort of territory that the YPG holds, and not the only place, but the main place where Syria's oil is extracted.
Yeah, so this is he's lately been saying like we're gonna stay there to protect the oil and keep the oil. We're just gonna
we're gonna maybe move American companies in. It's so funny because he clearly doesn't like he sees the words Deir ez-Zor and like doesn't know how to pronounce that. Because it does sound like a D&D character.
he thinks it's the resort. And that's why he wants to protect it. He thinks it's the most beautiful part of the country.
He keeps calling it the fucking oil area. And their plan there, from what I hear from insiders, is that they are planning, because, the YPG are part of the Syrian Democratic Forces, which is, the YPG is like, I think, 11,000, 12,000 strong component of that. The rest is sort of an array of militias, usually based in regions. And so the Deir ez-Zor militia that's in the Syrian Democratic Forces is the worst one in the SDF. And it looks like America is trying to go through its original plan, which was to split off the Arab regional militias from the SDF and use them directly as a U.S. proxy. So now America is sending troops down to Deir ez-Zor, and now armor apparently as well, which is a first for the Syrian civil war, and I'm assuming has stepped up like sharply their bribes to the militias in Deir ez-Zor to get them. I don't really know what the plan is there. It looks like the oil, because Syria doesn't have that much oil. It's not like fucking Saudi Arabia or even Iraq or anything. I think the plan is to deny Syria its own like domestic use of its own oil, and also to potentially be able to fight Iranian backed militias there.
But they got Trump to send the troops there just by saying the word oil to him.
Yeah,
because
and it's so funny to see him just be like, oh yeah, there's oil. We'll send in a company to get that shit out of like. There's like, it's like no, it's not even worth it for him. But he's just, I don't know. I guess black gold, Texas tea, baby.
Well, that's what's so funny about people saying that that Trump has any kind of like commitment to being like an isolationist or anti-intervention. All that had to happen was that the generals were like, oh shit, he's trying to get us out of Syria. What do we do? Sir, oil? And he's like, oh, the oil. Yes, we're going to get a giant straw, go across the fucking Mediterranean and just suck it all up.
Right. The fact that you could get him to stay in, like, he specifically called out leaving Syria, like during the primary and during the general, at times when he would remember to do it. The fact that you could keep him in Syria on oil, out of every country in the region, oil in Syria proves that it's just a fucking laser pointer and a cat.
I know, it's so insane. And there's talk. I have some friends that are worried now, especially because, Trump called the PKK or YPG, whatever, sometimes worse than ISIS. And there's people are thinking that the strategy might be to put the YPG on the terror list and to isolate them from the rest of the Syrian Democratic Forces, which is not great for me. But there was an article that came out recently about
getting your passport updated soon, Brace.
Yeah. There's an article that came out recently about a State Department meeting between the Syrian Democratic Forces representatives in Washington and the State Department. And the State Department's line is that the Syrian Democratic Forces should just join the Syrian National, which are those people that are attacking them, who are based in Turkey and backed by the Turkish army.
Okay,
like, it doesn't make any sense.
Just for my own edification, get this straight. The Syrian National Army is an offshoot of the Free Syrian Army, which is largely a collection of like jihadist head choppers, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, and the Syrian Democratic Forces are the militias who are fighting those people, and who could, I guess, in some loose sense, be called the good guys in this fight.
Yeah, I mean, yes, that is correct. And now the State Department of the U.S., their line is that basically the SDF, the Syrian Democratic Forces, should join the people that are attacking them, which is the Free Syrian Army, Syrian National Army. For what purpose? I'm not quite sure.
Well, they've been listening to a lot of John Lennon, Imagine. Like, what if there was what if like people came together in a battlefield, but to put down their guns? Pretty nice.
We need like a Christmas truce, but forever. Everyone could just. So America has this envoy about Syria to the coalition. This guy named Jim Jeffries, who's a real scumbag. And
I don't think his comedy's that bad. I actually like his
just Australian.
Yeah, you can't say that about every Australian. I know there's some bad ones, but
there's a lot of talk that that Jim Jeffries has some connections to Turkey that run deeper than I think might be appropriate for somebody in his position, and certainly his sort of second in command definitely does some. Remember when basically Michael Flynn got caught for like suddenly fixating on Gulen?
Yeah, he was going to go to Pennsylvania and catch him with a butterfly.
Yeah, Gulen and his international hyper wealthy network were fucked when put up against General Flynn and his absolutely moronic son. They were absolutely going to outwit Gulen, who evaded everyone for decades.
Flynn is going to get fucking freed in like within a month.
Yeah, if my petition goes through. Yeah, I maintain that Flynn was after Gulen just as a private citizen. Like,
he's working for the teachers union.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, Michael Flynn is friends with Martha Raddatz. Like, they go back a really long time.
Well, Michael Flynn was previously in the SEIU, and
yeah, Michael Flynn has a Gritty alt account. Like, he has a service worker Gritty that he posts on. I'm going to DM with him.
But so Jim Jeffries is, let me just say, the kind of guy who probably wants to get Gulen extradited, if you know what I mean.
Brace. No, go ahead.
Oh, I'm just saying, to put it clearly, I think he's probably being paid by Turkey.
Got it. Okay, so Brace, what did you make of the fact? What did you make of when Donald Trump said, like, the Kurds aren't so great? Where were they during D-Day? Did they help us out at the beaches of Normandy?
Well, he's absolutely correct. They did not. And I think that First of all, if you weren't at Normandy, it's you basically didn't fight in the Second World War. And if you didn't fight in the Second World War, that means it's kind of unclear what side you're going to be on in the third one. So I get his reticence there, but yeah, no, that was fantastic. Trump is one of the greatest orators in history, and it's first of all, it's untrue, of course, that Kurds didn't fight in the Second World War. There was Kurds in the Red Army, and I think there was Kurds in the like British kind of conscription forces from Iraq as well. But yeah, it's just insanely like you can see that someone explained to him who the YPG was, and he's like, oh man, no, this sucks. Like, we can't be a part of this.
I mean, like, well, the thing was, like, immediately people were like, even people who are like respectable members of the national security state were like, this is a stain on our country's honor that will never wash out. Like, the Kurds bravely fought alongside us. And then like, I think in Trump's brain, he was looking for like a way to counter that argument. It'd be like, well, they didn't fight very good or for very long. Where were they? Where were they in World War II? Like,
exactly. I mean,
which begs the question: where were the Israelis during the Normandy invasion? That's what I want to know.
Well, okay, if you really want to know, there were Israelis setting up a restaurant called Burger Rave on Omaha Beach.
Yeah. Which they were dancing on the roof of.
Yeah.
It's so insane. I mean, and the thing is, there's been a lot of like this sort of liberal, this Democratic Party and Republican Party pushback against this, but their solution is to keep the troops in Syria, which is not a solution to me. We can't just keep American troops in Syria. So Trump, like, it's weird because I saw people applauding his taking troops from Syria, which, of course, American troops should not be in Syria. But the thing is, America basically bound YPG to itself, like through force and through just like political maneuvering. The YPG could not negotiate with Damascus, and I think it was General Mazloum said, like, right after, like, when the Americans announced they were leaving, it's like, well, why have you been preventing us from having talks with Damascus for the past 2 years? And so now, finally, it looks like there are, like, negotiations with Assad that are happening, and they've been promising so far. So I'm hoping that the U.S. troops will leave northern Syria entirely, not go down to fucking Deir ez-Zor or anything, and that the SDF can sort of join forces with the SAA, the actual Syrian army, and not only beat back the Turkish invasion, but take back Afrin and take Idlib.
You bring up Idlib. We mentioned this on our last show. What do you make about the Baghdadi killing, and particularly where he was killed?
I mean, don't people always go back to the scene of the crime? I don't see what the big deal is.
It's so like.
Could you explain? Could you suss that out a little bit more? Because we like sort of implied that, but like it is kind of interesting. A little detail.
It's extremely interesting. So Idlib, of course, is like there's a few other pockets of rebel controlled area in Syria, but Idlib is like the main pocket of rebel control, and it is not. Everyone's like, oh, they're not friendly to ISIS there. Like, the groups that are there, the main group that, like, controls most of Idlib, which is a descendant of Al-Qaeda, which ISIS also is, believes the exact same things as ISIS. Like, there's no difference between the two.
Well, I don't know. They're kind of like never Trump conservatives.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't, all those flashy beheading videos, that's a little too gauche for me.
Yeah, no, it's true. And plus, ISIS has more gold they got from Israel. But
but Brace, like, for instance, like when it was announced, like, the big thing happened, we got him, Redux Part 3 or 4 or 5 or a million now. I saw immediately like a barrage of like skeptical tweets from like Michael Weiss and company being like,
Idlib.
They were like Idlib. That doesn't really make sense to me. Interesting. More to come on this issue. Like,
yeah, I know. I saw Michael Weiss was like, I don't know about this whole, like, because they were saying that he got tracked to his location because someone brought a pair of Baghdadi's underpants to the CIA. And Michael Weiss was like, I don't know if that's true, and like it unfortunately was true, but they tracked him because of his doo-doo stains. I mean, who fucking knows if they even killed him? Like,
yeah.
it's
well, the fact that they blew up the house. And then they claim, well, we didn't want them to turn it into a shrine. Famous shrine lovers, Wahhabist extremists. There's nothing they love more than building shrines.
They were going to go over there and depict images of him, their favorite thing to do.
Yeah, they were going to draw pictures of his face. It's totally fucking insane. I mean, they released video of this raid, which, I mean, who knows? But
who knows? Like, but at this point, we know for sure now, literally everything about the Bin Laden raid was a fabrication, was like totally fake. So
absolutely,
why anyone would like, again, it's not insane to ask the question, like, was he ever alive? Or like, he could have been dead for fucking years.
Well,
like,
there was a theory that a lot of people had, including some American generals, although they stopped eventually talking about it, that
generals.
Baghdadi didn't even exist.
Oh,
that
shit.
Baghdadi was just like, he was just a totally like a fabricated figure. And, you know, it is interesting that he spent quite a few years in an American prison camp and then was released and started ISIS. You know, it's not.
Well, that was a bra moment.
Well, okay. I'm gonna. Okay, you guys are pretty book smart, but you don't know a lot about the real world. A lot of people convert to Islam in prison.
I know. Dude, that'd be, oh my god.
But another like hint about like why, at the very least, you should be extremely skeptical of any official account of this military hit on Baghdadi is like, you remember in like the early days of the Iraq War, there was that the famous the Jessica Lynch, the POW soldier, who like they freed, and there was like a night vision
hero
raid,
rescue,
and they had this huge like hero's welcome, and they said that like she bravely like fired her gun again, you know, at like as the attackers, as her convoy was, you know, wiped out by these insurgents. She emptied her clip,
and then the cops, and then the troops like rolled in behind enemy lines to snatch her out of the hospital.
Okay, and then shortly thereafter, that story was exposed as a complete fabrication that basically is like the people who were holding her essentially saved her life and were like fired upon by American soldiers several times as they tried to return her to you know, like help her basically, and then Jessica Lynch herself, you know, I'm sure, feeling very ashamed about this horrible thing, this lie that she'd been conscripted in, went along with it, but then eventually said, like, no, like none of that happened. Like, I can't in good conscience, like, continue to. Okay, so they try to do that with like actual human beings and cast them in these heroic roles. The fact that they've made a fucking dog the hero,
smart. It's actually genius.
It's brilliant because the dog, you know, he's
a good boy.
He's a good boy. He's a good boy.
You can't talk, and people love dogs.
You know what will suck? If like the Seymour Hersh that reveals this is a bullshit story is We Rate Dogs.
I gotta say, man,
this heckin' puppa, he told me that Baghdadi wasn't even there. He died in 2014, and this 14 out of 10 good boy. Well, he's got a lot to say about America's involvement with the so-called Islamic State.
You know what? Last episode, I talked about the dog and Trump talking about the good boy, the dog, hippo promoted to detective, and I brought up that quote that conservatives like to bring out, which is, you know, you people take Trump literally but not seriously, and vice versa. And then he did the tweet of him giving the dog the Medal of Honor, which the New York Times felt necessary to post an article saying that's a Photoshop. He didn't actually do that. Yeah, and I was like, damn, you know what? You're right. You're right. Like, he's doing a bit, obviously.
Haters will say it's Photoshop.
You know what else is a fucking bit? The fact that they buried him at sea.
Wait a minute, Baghdadi too?
It's just fantastic.
Serious.
They just throw these fucking guys off of boats. It's all fucking a smoke show. It's insane. Like the whole fucking Syrian war.
It's Barstool Smoke Show of the Week.
The buried at sea is like the U.S. military's version of "It Was All a Dream" in sitcoms.
I'm just imagining.
Do you think I am?
Just imagining Bin Laden and Baghdadi in Davy Jones' locker with Robert Maxwell, and they're all like frolicking under the sea, riding giant seahorses.
My God, I've been tripping out.
We will get to Robert Maxwell, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, because I have a connection between Maxwell and Syria.
Ooh.
Okay, spit.
Very juicy.
Spit.
Very juicy.
So,
just for listeners, Robert Maxwell is the definitely for sure CIA and Mossad linked intelligence agent and British publishing magnate who is the father of Ghislaine Maxwell, who died when he fell off his yacht.
Body never recovered.
Also named Ghislaine.
Yeah.
Continue.
So it's funny. He actually had another daughter. Well, he had more daughters than Ghislaine. He actually had this daughter called Isabel Maxwell. And Isabel Maxwell, was married to a guy named Dale Gerasi. Dale Gerasi's father, Carl Gerasi, the inventor of Plan B, the birth control pill. Anyways, so Isabel Maxwell has a child. That child is named Alex, but Alex Gerasi, because his father's last name is Gerasi. So Alex Gerasi is the grandson of what has been termed the Israelis' super spy, right? Like Robert Maxwell did things for Israel that I wouldn't do for Israel, and I'm probably one of the most famous Israeli spies in the world. Alex
so
Gerasi,
humble.
it's an objective fact. Alex Gerasi started donating to Hillary Clinton in 2005 with a cool $5,000. I mean, that was Clinton 05. That was before she even ran for president. Of course, he is on her team when she runs for president in 08. And he is one of two political appointees to the State Department of Near Eastern Affairs. The Department of Near Eastern Affairs deals with Iran, Israel, Iraq, Syria. It's the Middle East, right? And he is one of two political appointees. The other political appointee is a guy named George Mitchell.
Ooh.
Now, George Mitchell, I think he was a senator, I think Senate Majority Leader at one point, and a judge.
Disney,
also on the
Disney board chair.
Yes, vice chair of the 9/11 Commission under Bush. Virginia Jeffrey, one of the most famous Epstein accusers, said that George Mitchell raped her.
And he's on the flight logs.
Yeah.
He's on the flight logs, and he's denied, of course, meeting Virginia Jeffrey ever. Who knows what he was doing with Epstein then? But so it's these two political appointees by Hillary Clinton to the State Department of Near Eastern Affairs. Only two: Alex Gerasi, George Mitchell. Alex Gerasi joins and is the American delegate, or one of the American delegates, to these two groups: the Friends of Libya group and the Friends of Syria group.
Well, that could be apolitical.
Yeah.
With friends these, huh, Donnie?
The Friends of Libya were basically all the Western countries that met, I think it was in Ankara in Turkey, or maybe it was in Istanbul, and decided to back the Libyan opposition. So it was through those meetings that weapons and air support, etc., were promised to the people that overthrew Gaddafi and are now doing a bang-up job of running Libya, one of the most potentially wealthy countries in the region. Friends of Syria was the same thing except for Syria, but like everything in Syria, it did not go according to plan. And now there was at one point 100 countries in it. Now there's 7 countries in it, in not even America anymore. But Robert fucking Maxwell's grandson was one of the people that helped overthrow Gaddafi and was trying to overthrow Bashar al-Assad in Syria. It's fucking insane.
I mean, I definitely, like I said, I do want to get to the Epstein stuff with you, because there's a lot to still talk about there, obviously. But just two more quick things on the Kurds and Syria. Is that I wanted to talk to you because I'm wondering, what is it like there, right now in the parts of that country that you were in, and the former comrades, friends, men and women at arms, I should say, who, you fought with, what is it like for them there now? You're mentioning that this is not going as smoothly as Turkey or these militias would have liked. I mean, just based on my assessment of just watching the news, I had assumed that this was all bad for the Kurdish forces in Syria, but you're saying that that's maybe not so much the case?
Well, there have been hundreds of deaths, right?
So, it's bad. Yeah.
Yeah, it's bad, but it's not this quick. When the Turks invaded Afrin, that was pretty bad. They took it fairly quickly, but now they're really getting bogged down. Partially because of just the huge concentration of forces here, but also because they do fucking suck at fighting. They haven't been able to beat the PKK in 40 years. But there is this, now they are just straight up attacking Syrian army soldiers, which is potentially pretty bad, right? Because the Syrian army is, of course, allied with Russia. And so for my friends that are over there, first of all, my old unit, the International Freedom Battalion, has reconstituted itself. That's a unit made up of all these Turkish Marxist-Leninist parties, and I think a Turkish anarchist party, plus YPG members and international fighters. They are fighting, and there's all these videos released of basically like guys in hoodies with AKs holding back the Syrian National Army because they're kind of too afraid to advance. So there's been a lot of fighting. Unfortunately, the Syrian troops there haven't really been supplied with armor or armored vehicles or heavy weapons or anything. So it's a bit of an uneven one. But it's really, I think, kind of up to Russia and Turkey at this point of what's going to happen. Because the YPG agreed to vacate this sort of strip of land surrounding where the Turks are invading and have the Syrian army go into there, which many people thought would lead to sort of like a longer term ceasefire or some sort of political agreement. But it looks like the Syrian National Army, the FSA, and the Turks are not stopping. So the ceasefire doesn't exist, and there's been like, I think 300,000 people displaced who are now internal refugees. And of course, ISIS fighters broke out of prison, and yeah, it's not great there. There are a lot of reprisals against civilians in the area where the Turks and the FSA have invaded. But it's also good because apparently, like, there's a lot of local groups like village councils, etc., who have taken up arms and are fighting alongside the Syrian army and the YPG against the Turks. So it's like it's I think it will turn into something like a people's war, like a sort of like flatland guerrilla fighting on the front, as opposed to these sort of giant pitched battles. But yeah, it's one of those things that this could go any direction within like the next day or so. So I'm really interested in to see what the fuck is going to happen.
And
but a lot of my friends have gone back. And I one guy I know died pretty early in the fighting. And everyone else I'm kind of waiting to hear from them. They're not dead, but I don't know where they are.
And I mean, do you regard, like, is there any role, in your opinion, that the United States could play in terms of support, as if not troops, if we all agree, like, no American soldiers should be anywhere in Syria? Is there any support or assistance that the United States could render on this side of the fight that would be positive, or is it all just like a poison chalice that's not worth sipping out of?
I mean, I don't think that anybody in that region, they should. I don't think they should have trusted the Americans in the first place. They definitely shouldn't trust them now. The best thing that America can do is to stop interference in the YPG coming to these UN peace talks, which is really like one of the most important things that hasn't been reported on enough. The fact that the YPG cannot even participate in the peace talks, and that they should. I mean, I'm fine with them sanctioning Turkey. I don't give a fuck. Like they should do that. They're not going to in any real way because there's a lot of investments here and there. But yeah, they should reopen diplomatic relations with the Syrian government and sort of maybe coordinate with Russia to make sure this offensive is curtailed and pulled back.
Okay,
but yeah. All the troops should fucking, I don't know, come back here and they can get really depressed and addicted to fentanyl.
Yeah, there are Dodge Challengers that are not being bought.
Exactly.
There are like all lives matter rap songs on Facebook not being posted. There's just like a lot, like a new COD's out and they're nowhere to be seen. Like, we need them.
Yeah.
We need them here.
Like, women need a husband that they'll cheat on. Like, women need to marry these soldiers they can have with cool guys instead of the soldiers.
Yeah, there are variable interest rate mortgages that guys aren't taking out. Like, bring our boys back.
Exactly.
All right, this is my last question on related to this topic before we switch into, so we say, domestic concerns. This is sort of a little bit of a digression, but I got to bring it up. What do you make of Ilhan Omar's vote of on the official recognition of the Armenian genocide?
So her
that's a yikes from me.
Yeah, no, that is not a good look, as they say. So obviously, Armenians in this country, and there have been Armenians in this country for a long time, have been pushing for official recognition of the Armenian genocide for a long fucking time. I think Obama promised it.
He did.
I don't know if
Yeah.
And then of course did not follow through.
That doesn't sound like him.
Yeah, totally. I know, uncharacteristically did not follow through. The Armenian genocide, which is of course very much not recognized by Turkey. In fact, they employed pogo stick dancers in a Skyrider in New York once to tell
That was
them.
one of our very first episodes of Chapo. Actually, we ended up, I think it was our 7th episode. We interviewed a guy who did video work for some friends of ours who did, like, he was a cameraman who had done video work with some friends of mine who did some early, like, video stuff for us. And they just told us, like, there's this guy who does camera work for us who was hired and filmed the Erdogan Genolai dance mob on like Roosevelt Island or something. God. And yeah, the skywriting and all that shit and the pogo stick dance troupe. Like he filmed all that and he was saying that like it was just a job people got hired for like off Craigslist. And they only sort of found out after the fact that this was like a genocide.
That's not true. One of Osman's dreams in his tent was he envisioned Showtime approximately 600 years before it had ever been done. So that's actually like an ancient tradition. So yeah, there you go.
So the flash mob didn't work, and everyone pretty much agrees that the Armenian genocide happened. Ilhan Omar says that she couldn't recognize it or couldn't vote present because the genocide sort of recognition was being used as a political cudgel. Which it is being used as a political cudgel, but no one cares. Like it actually happened. They should just recognize it.
Well, she also had an odd statement about how like these things should be decided by like academic standards rather than political concerns. And it's like, well, if that's the case, like there is no debate about this whatsoever.
Like it's unanimously recognized. Like when I was in Syria, at the sort of training school that they had, the ideological and military training school they sent us to, like. One of the first lessons was they taught us about the Kurds' role in the Armenian genocide and how they're sorry for it, etc. And so, like, yeah, people who did it are like, yeah, it happened. And so, yeah, she needs to give me a call and we can work this out mano a mano. I think, yeah, it was a bad move by her.
I think she was trying to make some sort of point because she also voted against the sanctions. And it's part of like a broader argument about, like removing coercion is like the centerpiece of diplomacy, which I think is a worthy goal. But yeah, it's one of those things where in an individual vote like this, it ends up being too clever by half because you're only one person and then you're scrutinized for this vote and people are mad at it. And the people who should be on your side are mad at you. And they're not necessarily going to accept that because, you're trying to make sort of a relatively abstruse point with your votes on something that is a very emotionally powerful issue for a lot of people.
Yeah. I mean,
and if she,
no, go ahead.
Oh, if she had just said like, oh, I don't want like this to be used as a political cudgel. Okay. I get that. But her whole thing about how like the Native American Holocaust and the slave trade, like we should recognize that. It didn't really make sense.
Well, it's like good. We should recognize that, but like, I guess the point is like, if you have a bill in front of you that's like vote yes on just recognizing like active historical genocide, just vote yes.
Yeah.
So again,
yeah, no, absolutely. It's not like it just came out of the blue. Like Armenians have been pushing for this for a long fucking time.
So yeah, just consider this like some light constructive criticism of the Congresswoman. Just got to be fair here. Still admire her greatly, but that one
we can make it up over dinner.
Yeah, that one raised my eyebrow. Okay, all right. Let's shift the discussion now. Like I said, to matters of on the home front here. Obviously, we got to talk Epstein because things. It's fascinating because, like, as soon as he died, like, that story just fucking disappeared.
Yeah, almost like that was the idea.
It's odd how that happened.
It's like, hey, this guy, this could be like a year-long criminal case with a bunch of discovery. What if he just died?
I mean, obviously, among, gentlemen such as ourselves, obviously there's still so much going on here. But as far as, like, the official press recognition or following this story, they're like, oh, well, the NFL drafts, the NFL season's coming soon. Like,
why are you bringing up old shit?
Yeah. But this has changed just this week. And I'm wondering if you could what is your take on the appearance of this guy, Michael Baden, who is a forensic pathologist who is a sort of gadfly in the autopsy community
in the body cutting up.
Yeah.
So
he's like the John Gotti of autopsy
absolutely.
He's because it's like he's the one that everyone can name, but actual coroners. Like, that guy's just a flash.
He's a flashy. He's me first flashy.
He's a hip hop style.
He's a hip hop style coroner, not a lunch pail 9 to 5 coroner.
Yeah,
but he had
He
that
is
show.
a hip hop style.
Didn't he have that show on HBO, Secrets of the Dead or something?
Yeah,
or like
yeah.
it was like a
He
bunch
did.
of yeah.
I think it was called Autopsy.
Every guy I knew who had exactly like if I was doing stats with them, they had exact medium intelligence. They were like, that's the most interesting show on TV.
So you got this guy Michael Baden, who I said is sort of a bit of a press hound for this kind of shit, and he is
the Dr. Joyce Brothers of autopsy,
and he is now giving interviews. He has been hired by Epstein's brother or his estate to do like a private examination of this, and he is now giving interviews to Fox News and other outlets, saying, based on his study of the evidence here, he would say that this points to homicide rather than suicide. I mean, no shit. This is what everyone is. We've been screaming for months now.
Yeah.
But like, what do you make? So Brace, what do you make of him introducing this again into the public consciousness?
So it kind of throws a wrench in things because obviously, Epstein was murdered, right?
yes,
But Michael Baden also is a fucking scumbag who is hired by Epstein's team. So like, it makes you wonder, like, oh, was he not murdered? Is this okay? But I think he was murdered, and I think that like it's one of those things where Baden is correct, but he's doing it not to get to the truth of the matter, but he's doing it to sort of obfuscate things in the courtroom. Because obviously, there are these big lawsuits against Epstein's estate, and the money kind of can't move to his brother, Mark Epstein, like it's supposed to without these being dealt with first. So I think this could just add a wrench in those proceedings. But Michael Baden is basing his opinion on the fact that a bone was broken in Epstein's neck, the hyoid bone, which is not like, that's not a bone that breaks when you do what Epstein did.
By the way, what I've read, they said like it does happen sometimes in suicides, especially in older men. Like it's not completely like jet fuel, steel beams.
right? Yeah,
parody, not true.
Didn't it? I think the most
however,
famous case,
like it is something that is almost always consistent with a homicide.
Yeah, it's like it's like a circle graph. Like not every time that bone is broken doesn't mean it was a murder. But every time there's a murder, that bone is broken, right?
Yeah,
like,
pretty much.
and if both cameras outside of the cell are
you add that.
and all of the guards are asleep simultaneously.
That's the thing that I think that like, we could clear all of this up very quickly if we were just allowed to watch the hours before Epstein's death and to see if anybody came in there and said anything to him or did something to him.
We can't do that.
That
though.
is
the cameras,
not going to happen.
The camera's broke. What do you want? It happens.
Unlucky.
How
Bad
did cameras
RNG.
break?
It's a bad RNG, dude. It's a battle royale.
Yeah, true.
If the ping at the Manhattan Correctional Center was out of this world.
Yeah. Fucking wireless Logitech products. Always fucking shitting on me, dude. I'm done with it.
Hey, it's like everyone was they weren't supposed to be there in the first place, and then the cameras were broken, and then he hanged himself in what is like in a ward of a jail that hasn't seen a suicide for 30 years, and the last guy who killed himself was in the mob. So it's a little suspicious. And it's Michael Baden, of course, himself is I think he was famously fired as it was like something like the it was like some high up position in New York State, like a medical position, because he was giving people advice on how to get away with murder.
The one thing we didn't want him to do.
Yeah. And of course he doing a autopsy on JFK for the House Select Committee on Assassinations, which another one of those things that make you go,
Again, you have very odd, but like as an addendum to this, like you have a questionable person, clearly for what is easily discernible as odd to, suspect reasons is
Yes.
reintroducing what is a factual and what honestly everyone should be talking about, the fact that he was clearly murdered in custody.
Yeah.
But like this has also inspired a new round of media takes. I'm thinking specifically of a piece I saw in Jezebel that essentially implied that like the headline was like, "Oh no, time for another nightmarish debate about whether Epstein killed himself or was murdered." And they see like the new line seems to be that like, let's just stop talking about this. This debate is sort of ghoulish and cruel, and most importantly, doesn't center the victims. Like his victims are being denied sort of agency or so like something like that having this debate is somehow cruel or gauche when like his actual victims are seeking some kind of justice through, like you said, these lawsuits against his estate, which seems doubly odd to me, because if you take that line seriously, like if he was murdered, that's a very important question, because the people who fucking killed him are almost certainly the people who have victimized, abused, and probably killed other people related to this case as well. So isn't that important to kind of figure out like what's going on here? If you're concerned about bringing justice to these people?
Everybody who has said like, "Oh, don't pay attention to how he was killed, pay attention to what he did when he was alive," is they're in my black book, if you know what I mean. It's obvious that all of this is so connected. Like how he was killed, who killed him, has a very big impact on getting justice for the victims, because it will allow us to finally lock up William Jefferson Clinton. If Jeffrey Epstein was fucking strangled to death in the Manhattan Correctional Center, I believe that is pretty fucking prescient to what happens to his victims, right?
Yeah, like to think that he was killed and it had nothing to do with like other people who were involved. Like, do they think that like, yeah, someone bribed the guards and got into the correctional facility. They did all this shit to kill him, but because he was bad. Like, is that what they think? You would literally have to think that to be like, this has nothing to do with the victims.
Yeah, no, this is like Assassin's Creed or something. Like he was given this mission by a guy on the street, and he came in and just walked by Epstein and stuck him or something. It's totally ridiculous.
It was Karl Marx. He was like, to protect free elections, you have to kill this bad man, Jeffrey Epstein.
There should literally be no other news story except for Jeffrey Epstein.
This is like when we had you on, like, you know, again, back when he was still alive to talk about this.
Yeah.
We compared it to the Mueller report. And now we have this Ukraine impeachment shit, which is, like, in my opinion, way more substantive than anything that the Mueller report produced. But at the same time, I still don't give a shit, because this is the only thing I fucking care about. Like, how can you just have this out there in your consciousness and be obsessing over all this other shit?
No, Felix, speak.
Yeah, it's like the people who are like, my favorite posts after Epstein were like the Pod Save Network people, the crooked media people who were like, just like, well, you know, what are you going to do? Anyway, we have our 70th emergency podcast this month about how Glenn Simpson actually heroically pointed out to the whistleblower that his email was being read by Mark Duragitz, and Teddy Ziggurat was seen with Clayton Grimshaw. And it's like, this is the thing you're obsessive about? This fucking thing?
Like,
this bullshit?
We literally have fucking Prince Andrew is like, can be arrested for raping a child. And we're fucking talking about Ukraine. Like, we can finally take out Cromwell's dream. Finally destroy the British royal family. But it's like somehow this is just like, it's a conspiracy theory because it's complicated and because it's not on fucking Mad Out. Like somehow the Mueller report shit isn't these FISA warrants or whatever aren't a conspiracy theory. But the fact that someone was killed in like actually turns out to be a pretty low security jail is just totally like out of bounds. And there's going to be a whole wash of articles now. In fact, I've seen a few already. Like, well, Michael Baden can't be trusted. Yeah, Michael Baden can't be trusted, but he's right. Like, it's murder. I mean, I can't trust journalists either. They fucking helped do the Iraq war. but like it's totally insane. And
right.
The thing is, some of our faves will be implicated. I want that to happen.
Right, and like
there's
no, yeah, like okay, if Michael Baden can't be trusted, like okay, so the Manhattan Correctional Facility people can. Like no one in this can be trusted, but like yeah, it's like the thing I've seen these like the mass media go after the past 2 days is if the Trump guy was too mean to the colonel who was on TV. Like, are you fucking kidding me? This?
But just as to the issue of the MCC and this suicide, I'd like to suggest not so much like a counterfactual, but just like maybe I mentioned this before, but like a parallel storyline that I think makes a very compelling contrast with the idea that he committed suicide in like the most secure protection you can be in as the highest profile prisoner in American custody. Prior to all of this, like maybe even just like a month before, El Chapo Guzman was held in Brooklyn, in a similar facility in Brooklyn, and taken to a courthouse in Brooklyn where he was convicted and is now sent to like Supermax prison. Mm-hmm. And they carried out that trial where like every single time he walked into daylight, he was wearing like a bulletproof suit and probably covered by like 20 snipers because he was, up until Epstein, the most high profile person. And like so Chapo is a guy, not only he's escaped from jail twice, right?
He's
responsible for the deaths of like countless prosecutors, police, and law enforcement people in Mexico. So there's like always obviously we're very careful about like the idea that he could be broken out or there could be some sort of attack on the trial itself. But further than that, if you're a guy facing life in Supermax prison, you pretty much have like every reason to pretty much kill yourself, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And if he had killed himself in custody, that would have been such a defeat for like the entire weight of like the U.S. prosecutorial apparatus that it would be like unthinkable
like
that they could allow that to happen
before they could hang him.
Exactly. Like if they want you to breathe every second of your life in a fucking box because that's like your punishment and that's the power that they have as the state, you're telling me that like they can't absolutely make sure that you live to experience every second of your punishment. This was happening basically parallel to the Epstein thing. And then and he's just like, oh, he just killed himself in jail. Oops.
Oh, well.
I was talking about this with Catherine last night, the El Chapo connection, and just this contrast here being so vivid. And I just like to say, just for listeners, you can do this too if you have an acute ep-pilled GF.
It's the thing is about Epstein's suicide too, is I have been in jail, and I actually have like had a close friend of mine was in solitary in jail where things are a little bit different. You know, you have even thinner sheets, etc. It's killing yourself with one of these fucking sheets is so hard. Like these things are basically paper. You can rip them. And like the fact that they're saying Epstein hung his like he like hung himself from the top bunk and like leaned forward and snapped
with force. With force. He leaned forward with force.
Yeah, it's just totally so out of the bounds of reality that like that should be the fucking conspiracy theory. The fact that they're saying that somebody can kill themselves with a sheet that's like thinner, it's like a millimeter fucking thick.
I mean,
it's not like you get 50 of these sheets. He was having a blast in jail, dude. His lawyers were bringing him hot. Think about this. Epstein had more sex in the Manhattan Correctional Center than statistically most listeners of Chapo Trap House have had in their entire lives. His lawyers would bring him girls to have sex with. And he was in high spirits. The last time he saw his lawyers, he said, "I'll see you Sunday." And we're supposed to believe that he just went back to his cell, got so despondent because he could only read trashy airport bookstore literature there instead of the Gouda and all these other things I'm sure he was used to reading in his mansion. And he fucking killed himself by leaning forward.
He was also in the week leading up to his death, paying off women to not testify against him. He was dispersing payments to keep them quiet. Why would you do that? Why would you bother with that?
Do that?
And everyone who says
people give away their belongings before they commit suicide.
But the one that gets me is just a lot of people say like, this guy, he's like this alpha sex maniac. He can't bear the thought of being, in jail. It's like maybe after he's convicted, I might buy that. Yeah, you know, like if he gets like all the tricks up his sleeve don't work, he can't swing a deal, and he gets a real like life sentence. I could see him killing himself then, but they hadn't even fucking tried him yet,
and all his
selected the jury,
and all his previous interactions with the criminal justice system would have proven to him by now.
Well for him.
Yeah, like
look, here's the thing: this is a man, as we found out about the Zorro rant stuff, who wanted his penis and head frozen.
Yes.
So presumably they could be attached to some sort of horrible
fuckbot.
robot later when technology
a post-apocalyptic fuckbot. Yes.
That is exactly. And he spent all this money, all this time, all this research. Like he was. It appears that he was basically dedicating like a good chunk of his life to this sort of life extension, this transhumanist stuff, and then he just kills himself in jail and lets his body sit there for hours while his penis, I'm sure, degrades. His egg-shaped penis, by the way. And then, of course, someone catches just a glimpse of him on camera being brought into the medical examiners, and nothing else.
I gotta say, the thing about him wanting to save his penis really proves that he's a complete psychopath. Because if you have a trash dick like that, like an awful egg dick. And you're imagining some future where you're in a robot body and you get to fuck forever, wouldn't you want like the highest end robot penis to replace your shitty trapezoid dick? Instead, he's like, nah, man, I'm sticking with this thing. This got me this far.
That's like the most darkly funny thing about Epstein is how fucking stupid he was.
He was a moron.
Yeah. Like he was obviously involved in this like international intelligence blackmail scheme, like the types that's existed for a while, but like as a guy, he was just a fucking idiot. Like, like I know that a lot of this is like influence peddling, but like the idea of him just being like, yo, I'm going to get all the science guys to come to my house, and they're going to tell me how to get pussy.
Yeah.
He was
like,
a fucking
Stephen
dope.
Hawking on a submarine, man. Like, don't do that unless like you think there's like a 20% chance that you can fuck a girl in the year 2075.
Yo, I'm going to get Steven Pinker over here, and we're just going to vibe, and he's going to tell me how to basically be immortal.
One of my favorite things that's happened since then is that because of this case now, one of my favorite things to do whenever you see some totally obnoxious, just evil person on Twitter sharing their idiot opinions like Larry Summers or Steven Pinker or Bill Gates, just reply to them always with one of the dozens of pictures of them and Jeffrey Epstein having fun together. And I've noticed that when you start doing that, like to Steven Pinker especially, like a lot of like the IDW people or people who love smart people get very angry about that. And what they say is like, oh, Stephen Hawking went to Epstein Island too. You telling me he was abusing women? And I'm like, yeah.
Absolutely.
Sure, dude. Yeah.
Didn't his wife divorce him?
He cheated on his wife with his nurse in his chair. He was able to cheat on his wife in the chair.
Again, to Chapo listeners, these guys are getting more pussy than you. I'm sorry. Even Stephen Hawking. It is so like somebody who is so obsessed with something, so especially so obsessed with life extension, to do this is just beyond the realm of possibility.
Not when you have cards to play. That's the thing. He had cards to play still,
right? And people say like
he had basically unlimited funds, and as we know, if you have money, it is a different justice system.
Yes,
even if the fucking media is on you. OJ got.
Yeah,
right. And like people were like, "Oh, but it would he got a sweetheart deal last time, and it would be different this time because of the media circus." It's like, you want to fucking bet? I mean, like, look how quick the news cycle moves now. Like, if they would, like, I'm guessing what they would have done is just drag this out for like 2 years, which is entirely possible if you have unlimited funds. And lo and behold, people fucking forget. They do it all the time.
If he could drag this court case out forever, which I'm sure was and now even after his death still is the plan, he could still have sex 3 times a day, which was the thing that his life, besides of course being a high value intelligence asset, was devoted to. So like, there's why kill himself because he doesn't have luxury?
Because the food was terrible.
Okay, there's 2 more. I guess we're going to go long on this, but there's 2 more threads that I need to bring up with you. The first of which is, where in the world is Ghislaine Maxwell?
Yeah,
because here's the thing: as these civil suits go on, there are attorneys representing the victims who basically have subpoenaed Ghislaine because she is a probably second only to him, like the most integral figure to this entire criminal enterprise, right? They have said now that, like, literally they don't know where to serve it. Like there was
a claim. Apparently Interpol's looking for her, and there was a thing a couple weeks ago claiming that they had triangulated her cell phone to a resort in Brazil, but nothing has come of that. Nothing has come of that.
Okay, so like just back up for a second though. A while ago, we all know for a fact, like up until about 2015, Ghislaine Maxwell was photographed. If you just search like the Getty archives,
oh my
her
God,
name,
everyone.
She was photographed basically at every single high profile, like the any party being held in Silicon Valley, Hollywood, or DC, of like the heights
and Manhattan, of course,
and Manhattan, and like the heights of like every sector of like power and influence in this country. She was at every party being photographed with everyone. Famously at Chelsea Clinton's wedding, there's that photo of her. She had an aisle seat at the wedding, such that when Chelsea was walking down the aisle to her beautiful, ugly Phil son husband, she was sticking her head out, and it was just like a line of people, and then just her head poking out. Then drops off the radar entirely, is not photographed or seen at any sort of society event for like 4 years. Then after the death, there's a story about how she's been held up in Manchester by the Sea, yes, the film and the town in New Hampshire, with this Silicon Valley type. That's the only like thing that we hear. Then days later, we get the photo of her at In-N-Out Burger reading a book called The Life and Death of CIA Agents,
and
which was exposed as a total fabrication.
It was a fake
within
photograph.
About 24 hours of it happening, and then never heard another word about it.
Yep.
Not a word.
Yeah, she's supposed to be in Brazil, but nobody's served her. Nobody's seen her there. And if she's in a resort, some fucking busboy or some waiter or somebody would have taken a picture of her. This horseshit. She does not have she's rich, but she does not have the resources to disappear like that unless somebody is helping her do it, or she's dead, which is my bet, honestly.
It's kind of funny. Her sister actually, her sisters who are twins, actually came up with this software called Kiliad, which the FBI uses, which is a way to sort of, let's say, coordinate like suspects' profiles across systems. So presumably she has a couple of inside men on that.
And of course, there's the story about the day after the photo was released. The customs network at all American airports went down.
All went out.
Unlucky. Dude, there's so much bad luck around this case.
And that means everybody had to do it by hand, which meant nobody could like authenticate the documents using any of the computer programs.
Yeah, she is. So she is said to be in Brazil along with Jean-Luc Brunel, who is this just like lifelong rapist, allegedly.
Monster, absolute scumbag.
A total monster who is a modeling, quote unquote, modeling agency like director and talent. Later in his life, just became exclusively a talent scout in Brazil. And there's actually testimony in the that emerged where I think it was Epstein's like houseman or something, like his butler, was talking about how Jean-Luc Brunel was always on the phone getting girls from Brazil. So he has a network down there, and when it emerged that Ghislaine was down there, it emerged that Brunel was down there. So my theory on that is either they are trying quickly to have a baby that will become some sort of like pedophile super baby that will eventually like emerge and repopulate the earth with all these horrible pedophiles, or they are both just dead, which sounds correct to me. Like I don't think we'll ever see them again.
I tweeted this, and I really think it's true. She is either in one of those doomsday bunkers that billionaires are building in New Zealand, or she's part of the foundation of one.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're using her fucking skull as a goblin somewhere down there, and it's the fact that like she was able to maybe slip out of the country, maybe she had already slipped out of the country without anybody noticing whatsoever. I mean, she was all over the news and at airport. I assume one person would be like, oh, that's the famous pedophile lady that's like on the front page of every newspaper.
Yes.
But nobody did?
No, but not a single mention.
Well, because it's interesting.
Every time I go through an airport, I get stopped for a long fucking time, and this lady can go through?
Well, I mean, it's like I said, the fact that she was photographed at like every single society party, and like the interesting thing is, despite being one of the most visible people in the world, she's like not like her photo ever showed up on like Us Weekly, because like the punters buying it, they would like, who's this person standing next to Bill Clinton or Elon Musk or whatever, right?
Plus, she's busted.
But everybody in that world clearly knew who she was, and she was always like, again, wrangled an invitation to Chelsea Clinton's wedding. I mean, think about the circles you have to be in to get an aisle seat at that fucking wedding. Okay, so then and then she just fucking disappears for like 4 years, and then now nobody knows where she is. And I'm sorry, like, is there any news outlet or journalist looking into this question at all?
I mean, I have every single day I think about quitting at Anchor and just fucking going down there. Because she's either in Brazil or there's rumors that she was in Thailand with Brunel as well, and just cutting my way through the jungle to find the place where her body is buried, because she's out there. Like, I know she's out there. Either her body or her living soul is out there, and I must find her and keep her safe. But yeah, she will never appear on a fucking witness stand. She will never we'll never hear another peep from her. If she somehow is alive, she is just going to be in another country forever, totally silent.
See, that's the thing for me that really clinches the narrative here. Not only do you have all the ridiculous coincidences going around with Epstein's suicide, all of those just stacked up things that make it impossible to know what happened. Oops. You have the fact that this person disappears. Because I remember when it came out that, she's hanging out with this billionaire in Massachusetts, I remember thinking, oh, fuck, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I got too carried away with this thing. But then there was a photoshopped goddamn photograph, and then she disappeared completely. I'm like, okay, never mind.
Not even a particularly well done.
No, that's the thing that's so baffling about it, because it clearly was not invented
like within a day.
It was clearly not designed to actually fool anyone for any length of time. It was some sort of either message or just buying literally a day. That's it.
Okay. Yeah. All right. This gets me to my the second and last thing that I need to bring up here. Matt, you mentioned about like the fact that it was such a poorly done like stitch up of like the movie ad wasn't right for that time or place. It was like so clearly fabricated.
There were artifacts all in it.
Yeah,
it
and
looked
like it just like, and it makes you wonder like, okay, well, like who's this? So obviously it's not to fool anyone.
Yeah.
But like you and I are not like the received audience for whatever message is being conveyed there, and the fact of the book that she was reading that was clearly visible, another huge tell here.
Josh, well, no, actually the book wasn't visible.
Oh, was
That's the thing. No, it was only reported at first, quote unquote, reported by a witness, and then it turns out it was just reported by her lawyer that the book was about heroes or dead heroes or something of the CIA.
I mean, she runs a book club. People want to know Ghislaine's reading group. What she's on about. Okay, so keep that in mind. Which brings me to my next digression here. Kevin Spacey. You remember at the end of last year when he released that video as Frank Underwood, again, like in character.
Yes.
As his character from House of Cards, where he addresses the camera like this bizarre monologue that when it happened at the end of last year, I was just like, this has blown out everything that's happened in 2018 before. Like, this is the most insane thing that will happen. Like my jaw was open, bleary eyed.
It was
I was like, this is a madman. Like this. Why would he do this? Who around him is like, yeah, Kevin, this is a great idea. Get in character as Frank Underwood and like inveigh vaguely about like, the conspiracies against you. And add to that the coffee mug with Queen Elizabeth's coronation.
Yes.
Which was clearly visible in that video. Again, you asked yourself back then, this makes absolutely no sense. This is the most insane thing I have ever seen. He is completely cracked. Looking at it now,
it was a fucking warning.
Looking at it now, it begins to take on a much different, more. There is a evil and sinister, but clearly logical, rational reason to do this. If you look about it through this light, that you and I, the video released publicly, we're not the audience for this video.
No.
So consider the fact that he is essentially playing the character that he did on House of Cards. Again, Catherine and I were talking about this last night, and I guess I had never really considered it. Consider the parallels between Frank Underwood and his wife and Bill and Hillary Clinton. Frank Underwood is a Southern Democrat who sort of governs from the center right of his party, who is sort of this, like, you know, covetous of power and this kind of Machiavellian political figure. That there are these, like, you know, parallels that are clearly, like, on the surface, pseudo based on Bill Clinton and Hillary. Mm-hmm. Then you add to that the very, very close relationship that Kevin Spacey had with Bill Clinton post-presidency and the Clinton Foundation. And then add on top of that the veiled threat to the royal family, i.e. Prince Andrew and that coffee cup. And what do you begin to think takes shape with regards to Kevin Spacey? And now we know one of his accusers in one of the trials that he was on, dead. The other pleaded the fifth on the stand and tanked the entire trial.
Amazing.
And now he's pretty clear. He's in Serbia. He's hanging out in Serbia right now.
He's in Serbia?
Yeah. Recently, yeah.
Oh my God, that is fucking spook city, Serbia.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
No shit. So someone made him go there.
So Kevin Spacey went from being like, oh my God, like this guy, like his crimes have been exposed. Like there is like numerous criminal like lawsuits.
He's just a
like,
deluded maniac.
Like he's a totally deluded maniac. This guy is like, you know, crashing and burning. Months later, he's off scot-free.
Yep.
Yeah.
So Brace, what do you think, like, again, I'm heavily implying here, but what begins to take shape when you think about this now?
So the Let Me Be Frank video caused shockwave. I mean, I still watch it about once a month. It is the most psychotic thing I've ever seen do, unless you consider that, yes, that mug at the end, because it's everything in that video is like, you don't just pick that mug. Right? Like there's not a lot of things to look at in the video. And the mug is one of the few things that like your eyes are drawn to, especially at the end where he takes this sort of purposeful sip of it. He toured at a private tour of the Royal Palace in I think 2015 and breaking all protocol, which they take seriously there because they don't have much else. He sat in the Queen's coronation chair. So it's either he could be saying a number of things, but we also must keep in mind that, of course, he flew in the Lolita Express alongside one William Jefferson Clinton, Jeffrey Edward Epstein, and for some reason Chris Tucker.
Oh, that'll never not be funny. That'll never not be funny. There's the fucking Rush Hour guy.
Yeah,
oh my God,
that's just the perfect touch to know that you're living in like the DMT death dream of a country.
But it, again, shows how dumb, like, that Epstein was truly stupid, because it's like, yeah, he got all the business and political leaders he needed to complete his task, his role in the world, but he was also like, yo, Rush Hour was some funny ass shit. Yo, so are you like still friends with Jackie Chan or what?
So it's I think it's a warning to the royal message or to the royal family, or a message to the royal family. And it could mean two things. It could mean that things are about to come, the house of cards is about to come tumbling down. Or it means you better kill Jeffrey Epstein. So I can be coronated as ultimate pedophile in the United States.
There can be only one.
It's so interesting because all attention basically has dropped from Spacey. And in fact, he's back. There was just a video of him performing some poem at like some fancy society gathering in Greece with all these, hoity-toity types. I think Kevin Spacey is going to reemerge. But everybody else involved in this is it's not necessarily going down, because these people kind of can't go down. Or at least there's a lot of people with an interest of that they don't go down. But everybody else has been sort of tainted by this. Like, Clinton is, Prince Andrew is. But Kevin Spacey, he's just sipping the tea.
Literally.
Because they came for him. It didn't work, and now they're coming for the royal family. They're coming for Epstein, and it is going to work. Well, it's not going to work. To be honest about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely a symbol, because there's no way that he thought he was going to get his fucking show back. Like,
yeah.
It's just like he becomes like one of those guys who's like, bring Firefly back.
I was out there in Times Square. I was counter-protesting the OA guys. I was dancing to bring back House of Cards with Kevin Spacey, totally alone. The only thing that kept me going was that Gandhi quote, first they laugh at you, then you have Francis the House Cards back. So do you like silver lining? Maybe we try not to end on like total pessimism. Will Kevin Spacey be in a movie filmed in Serbia with Steven Seagal?
Oh God, fingers crossed.
Absolutely.
Let's do
Serbian
it.
film too.
I guess like
his whole life has been
Yeah.
oh my god, yeah.
Oh my God, what if they sent Seagal to kill Epstein? They're like, all right, you can finally be of some use to us. And he went in there, somehow found a way to sit down. That's why Epstein was hung from the bed, because it was the only way Seagal could sit down. And he was like, your family hates you. And Epstein's last words were like, why are you making that voice? And he just fucking died.
My theory about Jeffrey Epstein, their death or disappearance, is this is my pet theory, is that his good friends, David Blaine and David Copperfield, the magicians, were able to one was in charge of the cameras and the other was either in charge of taking out Epstein or disappearing him. I mean, these guys,
and by the way,
made the Statue of Liberty disappear.
By the way, both
they can make Epstein disappear.
Like pretty much all magicians, but Copperfield and David Blaine especially.
Yeah.
I will say, allegedly, many allegations of them being complete rape monsters.
No, wait.
No. I can't remember. I think David Blaine has a rape island.
Yeah.
Copperfield has a rape island.
Oh, yeah.
Copperfield has a rape island, yeah.
You know who's, like, I've never seen a bad word said about him? The Mind Freak.
That's true.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
No accusations against Chris Angel or Doug Henning. He was a good guy.
Yeah,
Gentle Canadian soul.
The only good one, the amazing Jonathan, was going to blow the whistle on all these guys.
And they gave him the heart attack.
But yeah, we got to put. I mean, I hate sort of put a damper. I know witches are often persecuted around Halloween. People doing green face, etc. But we really got to put a stop in magic business until we can either figure out a counter for magic, which is possibly some sort of armor made out of steam, etc., or we can just throw all the witches in some sort of prison, put them in Idlib.
Okay, this is just like one final thing, like to wrap this up. I know you must have seen recently Hillary and Chelsea Clinton being on sort of a media tour to promote their latest children's book, which is about brave women.
Yes.
I know one really brave woman. No one can find her right now.
Like, they made the rounds of, like, the morning shows or whatever. And then, again, of course, because the primary was going on, a lot of people were, being like, oh, like Hillary Clinton's booking all these media appearances. Is she going to jump in? Blah, blah, blah. Which, who cares? I am, of course, fingers crossed, extremely rooting for her to do just that.
Absolutely.
But
Yeah,
my broader question is, you've got Bill just did a video about suicide awareness. Very, very funny. But
that was so good for my engagement stats.
People love doing suicide. Everyone's aware of suicide. Everyone I know wants to do it. Certainly, if I was about to kill myself, I log Twitter to look at all the people who make me want to kill myself, and I see fucking Bill Clinton, I'm immediately taking fentanyl.
Bill Clinton just shows up on a Facebook video and he's like, I wish you would step back from that ledge, my friend. I would understand. No,
it's the best bullshit celebrity cause. Just awareness of mental health. It's the best one.
And I was gonna say, Bill Clinton, he has scaled back.
Oh yeah,
and it's largely also due to the fact that he looks like a corpse now.
The adrenochrome connect got
the plug.
Off. Yeah,
they ran off on the plug.
Same thing with Biden. That's why his brain is melting.
No, I have a theory about Biden. I think so. Biden, you would think he would be implicated in this. He fits the profile of every powerful Democratic politician who would be, but he's not. And I think I know why.
Why?
Biden thought Epstein was gay. Epstein went up to Biden and was like, he just gave his idiot spiel. He's like, can I interest you? Some rules are meant to be broken. And he's like, who's the queer Jewish fellow with all the daughters?
He's like, I really respect you, man.
Yeah.
He's like, that's really cool that you're doing that. You're open about it.
Yeah, man.
It's not my bag, but good. God bless you,
man. I'm so glad guys like you. They didn't even let you used to get on airplanes. Now you got your own, man.
To tie it all together, Bill has scaled back his public profile, but Hillary and fucking Chelsea, Hillary Clinton especially, still out there, fucking like no fucking difference. Just
And Chelsea was the best of all of them. Chelsea had the closest relationship with Ghislaine Maxwell.
Yes.
So again, like here's the question that I slam my fucking head into a wall every time it comes up. Why is anyone whose name is Clinton or even tangentially associated with their political machine or their foundation allowed to go on TV and the first question they're asked is not about Jeffrey Epstein?
Seriously?
Because almost, it's like all the people that run these news channels are also like depraved rapists.
It's kind of
So
true.
like if they ask him about Jeffrey Epstein, someone will be ask them about either their own connection to Jeffrey Epstein or like the I'm sure countless rapes they've committed with female journalists. I mean, if the past couple of years have been any indication, all the people like CNN, NBC,
Matt Lauer,
are just
Redstone,
total fucking sickos.
Yeah, it's a mutually
like, once
shared
you get a
discussion.
certain amount of money, if you were inclined to be a sicko like naturally, there's like it's God does like a chance roll or something, and if you get like a 6 or above, you just become an absolute like vile piece of shit.
And even if you don't naturally incline towards being a sicko, wealth disconnects you from humanity and makes you less empathetic, more of a sociopath. And 2, they're going to make you do it so they know you're cool. Like
exactly. There's a lot of people that talk about like, oh, blah blah blah. Like it is. I mean, a cabal is just a collection of people who do weird shit, and like it's obviously rich people. Like poor people bond by like cutting coupons or like following sort of bogus health pages on Facebook, and rich people bond by just the merciless like depraved exploitation of young girls or young boys sometimes.
Whatever they like.
I think people all my coworkers talk about Epstein all the time. Like the people remember Epstein, but like the media has just immediately moved on. And for some reason people have this still like vestigial trust in like the New York Times or CNN or something, just because either the president hates it or because they don't like really know where else to turn to. But like those people are all implicated in one way or another, whether it's the sexual angle or whether it's the intelligence. They're all on the same side, and it's not your side.
Got to get rid of these rich people, man.
Well, I mean, yeah, like when we talked about this with you and Liz, I mean, I think like the real like what is the resolution to any of this? Like how can it be fixed or changed? Like the answer is like there is no resolution, or there won't be any like justice or tidy or anything satisfying publicly that will come of this. But if you want to fix it, just take away these people's money.
Yeah.
Like just take away the wealth of everyone, and there would be like less. There wouldn't be as much of this shit. They couldn't do it.
You can't buy an island without the money.
You can't have a rape island if you don't have the island.
Yeah.
You got to have the money.
So like when Bernie says like there shouldn't be billionaires, like that's the obvious like next thing. If you're like, make it a fucking campaign issue, there shouldn't be billionaires. There shouldn't be rape islands.
Yeah.
Like you can't have both.
Yeah, like exactly, and one does.
You can't have one without the other. Yeah.
Exactly. Like it's 100% agreed. Like and also I think Bernie is one of the few people not connected to the cabal.
It's true. I really do believe that, even if that makes me a sucker. I know why he doesn't, but God, I really wish he would come out and say, when I'm president, I'm announcing an independent counsel to investigate the Epstein murder case.
When I met him, I was like, there was like a moment I had where I could have been like, Bernie, tell me about Jeffrey. And I fucking blew it. I was like, your labor plan's really good. He's like, thank you. I should have been like, can you investigate Hillary Clinton for eating a child?
All right. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'll get to it someday. I'll talk to you.
One of these days.
Well, I think that does it for this episode.
I got to plug something. So this is only for people in the Bay Area, I guess. Need help with Election Day for Dean Preston, who's running for supervisor in my, my district in San Francisco. So anybody in the Bay Area, take off November 5th. Go to votedean.com and click Get Involved and sign up for Election Day. Hopefully that'll work, and some person will come and shoot me. I'll be there. You'll be really cool if you go. Another thing, too, is the Kurdish Red Crescent, Havia Sor, needs donations because they're fixing up a lot of dead people. Yeah, just go to HEYVASOR.com. And find the donation link and donate to them. They're the people who are stitching people up in Syria.
Yeah, we will put that in the episode description.
Yeah. Also, TrueAnon, my podcast about Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah, no, like
Don't you guys have a live show? Or are you sold out?
Oh yeah, well the fucking live show is $5 a door. There's no pre-sale.
Yeah.
But we're not doing a live podcast. We're doing a multimedia terror experience.
Ooh.
like a Hell House. Yeah,
We're doing a live investigation of Jeffrey Epstein.
that you'd be a fool not to attend if you're in the Bay Area.
We're building the fucking temple on stage. It is November 5th the November 21st at the Makeout Room in San Francisco.
Look for more further information in the show description. That does it for this episode. Always a pleasure to enter the mind palace of one Brace Belden.
Thank you, brothers.
Brother Brace.
Brother Brace.
Yeah.
Brother Brace.
Brother William, thank you so much.
Brother Brace and all our brother and sister listeners,